Yeah, I mean, waiting for you right now? No.
I need to get it, but you are going to show.
Hey, Michael. Terry called and said she's gonna be joining about 5 minutes late or so. She's in the car. So once we have
We're still
quorum, she said,
waiting. Yeah, we're still waiting for applicants to actually show up, so she should be fine.
okay, cool.
Yeah, we're last, so we.
Yeah, no, I've told them that we can wait.
We'll see how it goes. Yeah, how it goes. You doing?
And,
Okay.
yeah,
Because the kids is not bad.
it's, look, it's, obviously I'm losing math, but now I'm finding out like things that were mostly done and things I needed, like go pick up on and,
We weren't quite done.
yeah,
Yeah.
overall, I can't complain. Did a fantastic job. So it's like,
I know that feeling that somebody could think, I don't know.
I'd have the same people be like, you thought you had this done? I'm like, well, I thought I did too, but so. I printed out. I didn't know who was gonna show up, so just in case you want to take notes or whatever.
Oh, I know what good. Yeah.
Lines.
I hear Eric.
You do hear Eric.
You do hear,
Hey,
How are
Susanna,
you?
how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad.
I need to log into the meeting so that I can share my screen.
Present.
Yeah.
Do you need a password for here?
No, I don't know, maybe. Is that it?
No, for us, just automatic that.
So my voice is that recognizable, huh, Susanna?
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't see anything.
Michael's working on that.
You don't
Okay.
see anything? Why is that?
It says video's not on. If you lower right, left corner there,
Yeah.
video.
Right here?
Yep, that one there. Just click right on top of that and maybe that'll start the video. No, were you right on top of the video? Yeah, just click on that.
Yep, just click it.
That should already be full.
There you go. I see you.
Can you see that? Can you see now?
Yes.
Oh. So in your earlier district, like what you need to do is when you want to do a free district, you have to go online and there's a section for free submit.
Okay, yeah.
And then for a free submit, they will not ask you for this concept plan, something to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, this is a thing where, if we can't get to work, she's not gonna buy the building.
Okay.
It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, just let us.
Oh, geez.
No,
Right.
it's not a big deal. There's a lady, she has a little shop and she wants to do something downtown and she found a cool historic building she wants to buy, but it's boxed in, so it only has access from one side
Mm.
and it has a stair that goes up like 4 feet. So, to get an accessible entrance and be able to get her product in the door, we gotta figure something out.
Some problems, yeah.
So we'll see.
Well, they hired the right guy.
Like I said, we can't figure it out. She's, she likes the building, but if we can't figure it out, she's like, yeah, I'll just move on.
Yeah.
Okay.
trying to see how squeeze that. The schedule is tight. I was telling you that.
I haven't started yet on that one, though, isn't it? I don't even have it.
Oh, okay. So everybody wants to go.
I know, everybody wants to.
Are we waiting on Terry?
Yeah,
Someone-
she's gonna be like 5-10 minutes late.
Oh.
Yeah, we're waiting.
Are we waiting on applicants still, Michael?
No, let me see who's here.
Most important applicants are here.
Yeah.
We can start. We can go first.
Yeah. There is, yeah.
It's only a courtesy review, so we just want people's feedback.
Well, it still takes a while, I can tell you that, but.
No, especially Korea's a full review.
You know, after that meeting, John Burr just sent the legal action report to me on it now.
Okay. That's all right. See what everybody said.
Yeah, I just sent it
As
to
best we
them.
can.
I didn't even go through the post, you know, I just sent it directly to them.
Hey, welcome back, Savannah.
Hey, thank you, Jan. It's nice to be back.
Yeah, it's nice to have you back.
How are things in the
I think they're
Meanwhile-
just busy. I think they're just busy.
I feel that. I feel
Yeah,
that.
I bet you do.
I think it was actually good timing. There were a bunch of PMM projects that I couldn't review anyway.
Right, I remember thinking that. And she's here.
Hi, everyone. I made it.
Hey, Terry.
Yay, hi
Terry.
Terry.
Sorry about my delay. Can't predict Phoenix traffic, you know? So did we start yet or we're just
No,
waiting?
not yet. We were waiting for you and
Okay.
also waiting for applicants. Mike, are you doing the second case?
Yeah.
We could take some out of order.
And we're doing, Armory Park, this
So
main area.
you're on this Sosa Carriero house. I don't see the applicant for the first case, but Michael is here for the second case and he's here for the second and third case. So we probably can do it out of order while waiting.
Okay, I don't see that as the problem. So if you want to go ahead, the recording's already on, so
I believe it's already on, Madam Chair. Yeah.
yes. Okay, well, great. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for waiting for me. This is the Tucson Pima County Historical Commission Plans Review Subcommittee meeting of Thursday, December 12th, 2024. Call to order at 1:09 p.m. Let me turn my page here. Okay, and I will go ahead and do roll call. Terry Majewski is here. Jan Mulder,
Here,
Andrew Christopher,
Here.
Savannah McDonald,
Here.
Joel Ireland,
Here.
and Ricky Riojas is not on, I don't believe, correct?
No, she's not.
Yeah, she won't be on today, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go on to item 2, which is review and approval of the 12/10/2024 legal action report and meeting minutes. Could I have a motion to approve as submitted, please?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Excuse me, we have not been able to
Oh.
generate that legal action report, so we're going to approve it in the next meeting. That was. on
Okay,
Tuesday, so
Yes,
it's
so
not yet.
not ready yet. Did we, at Tuesday's meeting, did we approve the last meeting?
yes.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, okay, so sorry, I was
I know
was
you
not
were
thinking.
Jan was
Okay.
the chair of that meeting and she did a good job too.
Yeah. Yes, and item 3 is reconsideration of hybrid PRS meetings. Now, I have a question, Michael. Is this just a standard thing we need to do, or is
No.
it?
No, Madam Chair, when I was generating the agenda, I wasn't sure whether the action was going to happen on the 12/10 meeting. But the subcommittee decided to vote on it at the 12/10 meeting, so this number 3 is good. It should
It's
not
already-
have, it should not have been on this agenda,
Oh, so I'll just say it's already taken care of, right?
already taken care of, Madam Chair.
And we voted to remain virtual?
Yes, Madam Chair,
Well, with going back
And
to
then
hybrid as
with
needed.
the caveat that they can do a hybrid as needed. And staff will be informed in advance.
Okay, so basically, hybrid is needed.
Yes,
Is that okay? All right, so then we'll move on to item 4. Historic preservation zone review cases that we review under UDC section 5.8/TSM 9-02.0.0 and historic district design guidelines and the revised Secretary of the Interior standards and guidelines. And you had said that case 4A is not here yet?
not yet, Madam Chair, so I
Okay.
think we can take it out of.
Okay, so we'll move on then to case 4B, which is SD 1024-00104 at 151 South Granada Avenue for the Sosa Korea Fremont House. And this is for rehabilitation and landscaping, restore and renovate the existing Sosa Korea House property at the Tucson Convention Center campus, provide increased universal accessibility, rectify code and life safety deficiencies, restore the adobe structure, and renovate the grounds to support additional programs and enrichment activities. Fully restore existing building on the exterior, including the doors, windows, roof, and adobe. Restrooms dating from the 1970s will be fully renovated, and the existing break room will be brought into full code compliance. Now, this is a full review in the downtown Tucson National Historic District /RNA/IID. It's an individually listed property, and we will use the rehabilitation standards. Now, Michael, do you have any background on this, or is Maria there because it's an IID, or?
Maria is here. I just saw her, but I don't know whether she's on scene.
I'm also here to answer questions about
Yeah, so
the application.
Gabriel,
and some of the applicable
Gabriel can
design
give us an update on this.
Okay. So do you have any background, or will we just move right into the presentation?
I think we can just go ahead and move into the presentation.
Okay,
The
and
last I knew, Madam Chair, they were struggling to have to meet with the historic landscape subcommittee.
We did meet with them.
So I'm not, that staff is not privy to that information, but you will be told if they met with them, exactly what was said at the historic landscape subcommittee. That was a recommendation from staff because we knew that was going to happen. Do you have any background to give on this particular case, Maria? The Sosa Cario?
Yeah, Gabriel is there. He can give a little overview. I just checked the lobby, nobody else
Okay.
is there.
okay, so we don't have notes from them yet from HLS, or we do?
I mean, if the applicant's not here, I can run through their application real fast. Just in brief. So we've gotten a special districts application for the Sosa Korea House improvements. We've had to reject it twice at this point because of issues with their shade study and shade study diagrams. They haven't been for the correct, one wasn't annotated at all for date or time of day. The other one was annotated for date and time of day, but the shadows were pointed northeast. And at 12 o'clock on June 21st, the shadows point kind of northwest in Tucson, based on a couple of shade study tools available online. I guess there are some issues meeting the 50% shade coverage requirement. It wouldn't apply to the entire pad, right? The entire Tucson Convention Center site, but it's site specific. It doesn't have to be just public sidewalks. We have that sort of semi-public space out in front of the Sosa Carrillo house on the way to the road, which has some pathways, which would also be those, like shading those at 50% would be conformant with the shade requirements in the Rio Nuevo zone.
And they also have to go to design review board for,
Mhm.
so the review by DRB is still pending, Madam Chair.
And so when will that be scheduled, the DRB meeting?
Next week.
I'm hearing that it is going to be scheduled for next week.
Okay,
I haven't gotten any materials. Yeah,
They
for that.
they need to resubmit the information requested. We haven't received the revised
Yeah.
design package yet, so we cannot take them to the DRB next week until we receive the revised design package.
Which,
Yeah, okay.
okay, well, we can
We have
talk
to
about that.
accept that.
What's been presented.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because it's,
We'll just present the whole project.
let me just ask, Jan, were you on HLS when they reviewed?
No, unfortunately, I was in the middle of coming home, so I missed that. I did ask Steve for information and unfortunately I got it. I thought to ask kind of late, so all I was able to do was look at the LAR, which pretty much was complimentary and said they recommended approval as presented. So I wasn't able to listen to the audio and hadn't seen the video, so I'm sorry. And I haven't had a chance to really talk to Steve about it either.
Presumably they would have noted any objections.
Well, that's kind of was my thinking. I mean, sometimes they will have a more rich discussion around, or we will around a topic, but the bottom line was they were happy with it, is my read. But Michael, I'm sure would let us know if there were issues that came up with them.
Okay, so will we go ahead then and just hear the whole presentation right now?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay,
Can I just ask a quick process question? I mean, the RNA IID guidelines are reviewed by DRB, right? It's like the shade and the
Yes.
guidelines. So what, can you clarify for us what our guideline or standard is that we're reviewing against?
Sure, so for application acceptance, they need to have, like, we need to have a complete application to accept before we can transmit it to the DRB. And so if there's, if the shade study isn't for 12 o'clock on June 21st, then it's not, like, we can't accept that shade study, right? And
Yeah,
so
that's you guys checking for compliance of the application. I'm talking about our body as PRS.
my assumption
historic.
is that it would be for compatibility using
Yes.
the secretary standards and
Okay,
rehabilitation standards. Is that correct, Maria and Michael?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
okay.
And noting that this property is individually listed.
And so the only way I know, I understand from previous discussions that there's some time sensitivity to trying to get this through before the end of the year. So the only way really there could be a hangup is if we reviewed it and we were satisfied or had recommendations, it went to DRB and they made substantial changes to something like shade structures that would impact the structure, then that could be, something like that could be problematic. Is that kind of what we're, with the order of things the way they are?
Yes, Madam Chair, we kind of took it out of sequence, the normal sequence that we usually do, because there's some financing involved in this project. They need to get this review done by a certain time. In order to do that, the money will expire or something. So that is why the best opportunity was for PRS meeting today. We figured the best thing to do is let's do PRS today. Once they submit their full submitter, then they can go to DRB. So you can just do your review based on the compatibility that you are charged to do. And then the rest of whatever thing they do with DRB. And then the recommendation can be if there are any significant changes to what DRB requires, then they can come back.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's go ahead with the presentation, please.
Okay. This is my turn. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Becker. I'm an architect with Swaim Associates. Eric Barrett's here with me. It's nice to see everybody today on this beautiful afternoon. We've been working on this Social Security House for some time. I started probably in 14 under the previous ownership. For those of you that don't know, 2 years ago, Rio Nuevo purchased the property from the Arizona Historical Society. Rio Nuevo owns the south half of the TCC campus. City owns the north half, so this falls within that. It's now part of the overall campus, is the way we've been sort of treating this to a certain degree, while obviously recognizing its significance and importance. Los Deseantes is still using the facility, which is why Ricky can't be here today. And Rio Nuevo has extended their lease, so they will continue to use the facility and continue to do programming out of there. Borderlands Theater is also still in the building and will continue to be in the building. The project was always seen as a way to enhance the house and the enrichment and education activities available there. But it started off as just a pure restoration project because, as many of you know, AHS has had their budget slashed repeatedly, and they were no longer able to maintain the house. So the adobe has been damaged, and we are going to be fully restoring it. So let me share some documents. We'll run through this as quickly as we can so we can get some comments from you guys. And we'll talk about the shade study issue. I think it may become sort of apparent when we get into this, what we're doing, what we're trying to do. So let's see. Can I find? Sorry, give me just a second here. I'll just share that one first. All right.
There we
So,
go.
I'm going to start with just this plan, just to show you the kind of existing conditions. I think everyone's probably familiar with the house. Is there anyone who does not know anything about the Social Creo house?
No, I'm familiar.
Okay. So it is in the center of the TCC campus. It was saved during urban renewal. We're seeing the plan of it here. And we, meaning Swaim and Arc Studios, was involved in the Rio Nuevo restoration of the TCC campus over the last few years. And this was sort of a postage stamp that we weren't able to do anything to in that restoration. So now that Rio Nuevo owns it, we're able to bring it up to the same level of finish and integrate it somewhat with the campus. This is the sort of existing condition as it is today. There is a large west lawn with a fountain in the center of it. There's parking lots on the south, the west, and then a new parking garage to the north. The music hall is also to the north. This is the house itself. You see the primary house on the kind of lighter color roof. That is the original house from roughly, probably 1880, 1890. The addition on the back, which is the darker roof, was added in the 70s, and we'll discuss that. And then there was a backyard, sort of courtyard space that has brick pavers in it. There's a beautiful kind of heritage fig back there that we're saving as well. So this was the overall, again, just sort of give you an idea what it is. Let me share a different document now. Actually, let me get the document open first. Let's see. You want to do landscape first, Eric, and then do site and then go into the building?
That's fine, yeah.
Makes
That's
sense.
how you
Okay.
want to,
All right, let's go ahead and share this one then. Yeah, let's see. Computer is acting very strange today. Sorry about that. Try again. Share. There we go. Oh. Sorry, I'm not as organized as I thought I was. Apologize. Let's go to the. We'll just pull the full setup. That probably makes more sense. Right. There we go. Just want to give you a little more context before we jump into this. This is the aerial of the overall convention center campus. As you can see, there's the arena, music hall, Leo Rich Theater. This is church. and then Granada on the west, and this is the house. It kind of sits in the center of the site. There's actually no street frontage at all for this property. And as we noted, it's been relatively untouched for some time and has some issues with it. The front yard is fairly barren. Right now, there are a few trees that have managed to survive. And we're saving those that make sense, and I'll have Eric talk about that a little bit more. But here's the existing site plan, as you can see it. We have made improvements all around this site with the rest of the TCC campus, and again, we're bringing those into the site itself. The house sits on the eastern edge of the site. There is a kind of patio in the front where you see number 8 there that's made up of some tile right now. The existing fountain we had debated getting rid of, but Los Des has raised money to restore that fountain, so we're going to keep that in place. And then you can see the kind of existing trees that exist on the site. What we're going to be doing from a site perspective is, let me jump to another document. There we go. Trying to decide where to go next. Oops, sorry. Not what I want to do.
The last one's probably better. We're talking about the street and just kind of.
Yeah, this one, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we were trying to do is because this building is so far out of context, this building, this Korea House was originally on Main Street, which ran right in front of the house. So what we wanted to do is begin to put the house at least somewhat back in context to create those spaces on the west lawn that we could begin to use for those enrichment activities. So what we did, let me jump to this one, is we have the aerial that exists. We found this, which is a very, very fuzzy aerial from before the urban renewal happened. And this is the same scale as this aerial that you're looking at now. So that overlays on there. And what we started to look at were the positions of the houses that used to be across the street. So you can see down the center, this was Main Street. You can see the parallel parking on both sides. That gave us the kind of width of the street. We also looked at the Sanborn maps, which make some notes about that as well. And then you can see kind of where those existing where those houses would have been across the street. And so part of our idea was to begin to define those as areas that we could start to reinterpret and use for those enrichment activities and some of that interpretation work that Los Des and Borderlands Theaters can start to do with the site and the community at large. So to that end, we worked with ARC Studios, with Eric Barrett's office, to really redefine the street on the front yard as a plaza space that then could be used for events and other activities. And then looking at where those foundations would have originally been, using those to create some seat walls and some planters and some landscape features that we could then begin to use to provide that enrichment activity. So that is how we kind of came to this final site plan, which what you're seeing here is the number 10. Let me zoom in just a little bit on, and we'll talk about the west lawn first, and then we'll move to the backyard next. So number 10 would be the actual, the plaza that we're talking about. That is kind of where the street was, with the sidewalks on both sides. Oops, sorry about that. The material for the street is going to be a stabilized decomposed granite, because in the period that we're looking at, it was probably dirt, and we need it to be an accessible material. So stabilized DG is considered an accessible material. So, and we believe that fits in best with the kind of what we're trying to create here. And then within the foundation outlines that we're sort of finding and interpreting to a certain degree, we have been talking to Los Des about partnering with potentially Mission Gardens or some other heritage groups to do some gardens here, more sort of edible vegetables that would have been grown in the barrio at the time, so that then we can do some interpretive educational activities about kind of what people ate and what they were growing, what was happening, things like quince and a lot of the other kind of heritage vegetables and plants that we would have seen people would have used in the barrio. On the south, where number 4 is, as I mentioned, they had raised some money to restore the fountain, which is number 2, which is remaining in place where it is. Number 4 would be a brick patio, because they are selling basically engraved bricks to raise the money. So this is where they can place the bricks. It's a large enough area they can add bricks in the future if they continue to use it as a development tool and to raise some money. As we move further west, we do have some basins on the far west side, some water harvesting basins so we can pick up and some of the rainwater. And overall, the plantings around the edge, and Eric will jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, the plantings around the edge of the site begin to transition into more of the palette that we used on the rest of the TCC campus.
Correct.
Because we're trying to sort of, again, blend the edges to a certain degree, but then also provide this new experience that talks about the history of the site. Along the south side of the site, this is a existing sidewalk. It's quite wide, and that's because the convention center uses this for maintenance and service and access and all kinds of other things. So we were required to maintain that wider sidewalk. And then south of that, like I mentioned, there's a large parking lot there. The outlines of the buildings themselves are, we're sort of interpreting them. We have a fuzzy photograph. Something I'm interested is when we start digging out there to see what we actually find. If we find evidence of the actual foundation walls, I think we're going to change the plan and use those as the locations of some of these seat walls so that we're more directly related to the land. What we don't know is how much demolition they did in the late 60s. We don't know if they scraped this thing all the way down or if they just took the buildings down and left the foundations below grade. So we still don't know exactly what we're going to find out there, but we're actually really excited to find out. So I don't know, Eric, do you want to talk about anything else?
Yeah, I'll just touch. So the landscape, does reflect a lot of the palette that we use for the historical landscape, but also along the southern part of the site and west part of the site, pulling into just a mixture of species that would, be representative of different residential or barrios for that matter. And so we're trying to pull in from that aspect, but we're also trying to control circulation so people aren't just like, for lack of a better term, jaywalking across our site. So we're intentionally defining the outer perimeters and really trying to get people to access from the west and go through the central plaza by the fountain and enter the main then street before you did the actual go into the Social Security house. And then Michael's showing you from the south side, if you were to come in from the parking lot, the 88 parking lot on the south side, or even if you're coming from the music hall, that we're really directing flow of circulation and traffic into a gathering space and into the house itself. So part of our discussion that we had with Eric Means, right? About the Adobe and the condition of the Adobe, his ideal condition of Adobe was to basically stay 10-foot clear of any vegetation and maintain a dirt or wicking type component. So you can see on the west side, we provided some trees to provide shade for the west side and kind of shade the plaza space, but we did not provide trees on the east side for the specific reason of we don't want trees starting to grow into the adobe itself, which is exactly what they would do. So there's multiple things that are coming into play with the different reviews and agencies about shade and what we need to do and can't do, including the PAD itself, which was actually very restrictive about trying to maintain views to a mountain and Tumacoc, yeah, that word, hill. So for all that, basically, I kind of went more than just the landscape, but overall site design and development, we met with historic landscape subcommittee 2 different times, and receiving favorable review from Steve and Helen and I don't remember the third person's involvement, but specifically reaching out to them to make sure that we were completely compliant from all aspects of the development. So I'll stop from now.
That's fine. The last part of the front yard, or the west lawn, we'll call it, is the lighting concept. So what we want to do there is sort of do 2 things. We want to kind of extend the lighting, the kind of secondary lighting that we provided on the rest of the TCC campus so that it's integrated with the campus and provides the minimum level of light to be safe. And then we're providing some accent lighting at the street itself. So what you're seeing in this document is, zoom in just a bit more here. This is the light fixture, and this was reviewed by this body and by the landscape subcommittee in terms of the lighting that we did for the rest of the TCC campus. So this is the sort of pole that we see everywhere else around the campus. You can see the historic light poles in the background. Keep in mind, these are not dark skies compliant. So we've done a lot of work on this site to maintain the light levels at the correct to meet the dark skies requirement, accommodating these unshielded fixtures. This fixture, though, this is on Church, is where this specific one is. What you won't see on our site is this tall concrete base. This fixture and this base would be flush with the ground. So we have this base here because this is adjacent to vehicle traffic, and we don't want the pole damage. But where we're going to place them at the Sosa Korea house, they will be flush with the ground. The reason we use these lights is we set them sort of in the tree line or at the edge of the tree line, which allows them to kind of disappear. I have a few photographs here of other places on campus. So you can see the historic light fixture, and then right next to it here, there's actually a new light fixture adjacent to this tree. There are more in the background there. And then also in this fixture, you can quite clearly see the historic fixture. There is actually a new fixture here as well. So that is our intent with our site plan, is to locate those fixtures into and adjacent to the trees that we have in the front yard, so they sort of disappear as much as possible and light the western section of where the gardens are and where the donor bricks would be in the fountain. Now, for the street itself, we looked back to some older photographs. We found these two photographs that show these sort of suspended lights that were over the center of the street. You can see one there, and then you can see another one in this photograph. These are more turn of the century or late 1900s photographs. But we thought this would be an interesting way to light the plaza in a way that would be less intrusive to the overall design. So using the two light poles that we have on the west, which are actually lighting the central plaza, they'll be directional out here, and then locating two poles at the edges of the house itself, we would then suspend a fixture in the center. On two fixtures on the center to provide general lighting for that plaza space. And then we haven't identified what that fixture is yet. I'm still trying to find the right fixture because we want something that is clearly a similar geometry, but obviously we don't want it to look like it's 100 years old. So it's been a little more challenging than I thought to find a good fixture for doing that. But that's the lighting concept for the West Plaza only. And I think, and I don't know, Terry, maybe you can give us some advice. Do you want us to stop here and get comments on this part of the project? Because we have basically four pieces to discuss. We've got the West Lawn, the restoration of the house, the changes to the 70s additions, and then the backyard, the courtyard in the back.
Well, let's entertain some questions here so that we keep our train of thought, because there's a lot of detail.
Absolutely.
So who would like to begin?
I can go.
Go ahead. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, I think this looks great. I was wondering with the kind of the central street concept, I think that's great. I really appreciate the overlay and the aerial detail you guys got into. I think it's maybe not reading like that clearly as a street. I'm wondering if maybe you extended like the whatever the border is to this DG area, if you like extended that to the edges, just to kind of like delineate the edge of that street. And maybe that helps, even if it was like a brick border or something and you like inlaid into the concrete where it crosses it. Because I think part of the story here, I totally appreciate all the effort to integrate it into the TCC. Yeah, into the TCC like overall site, which is great. But I think part of the story is definitely that it's this kind of orphaned like artifact of urban renewal. So I don't mind that kind of like harsh edge and like cutting off of it, from a design perspective. But that's the only real suggestion I have. The question I had was on the upper left like plaza area that may be a garden. Are you showing stairs up to that, or are those like
Right here.
yeah, or is that like drainage under the sidewalk?
So there is, it's a great question, Andrew, right?
Yes.
Andrew. There is about a 2 foot grade change. We also have a small drainage channel kind of coming through that. So actually the darker one in the middle there is showing scuppers trying to keep it on our site, conveying the water through the site before then it connects into the water harvesting area at the far west side of the site before the pedestrian sidewalk. So, but there is a grade change. And then, so for that location, the set of stairs that were built with our historical restoration project, the TCC. And then the item 3, the one to the east is tying into more of the hardscape pattern that was reflected of the historical landscape with a ramp at condition up to grade and then creating more of a flat plaza. So even though it looks like it's flat, the site is far from flat. So it's a little bit challenging in that aspect.
Because there's a
Okay.
grade change at the south side of the
Correct,
site
yes.
too, right? Yeah, so it's,
But I do think I like the idea of maybe just carrying the header or something like
Yeah,
that through and just
yeah.
kind of saying, look, this is a continuation of the street. I think that's fantastic.
Cool. Great. Thanks, guys. That's all I had.
Thank you, Andrew. Who's next?
I'll go. I just had a few questions. I was looking at the original aerial, in comparison, and sort of got a cruciform type shape, right? With the
mhm.
fountain in the middle. I was curious about when that all happened, when all that went in. Is that when the fountain went in?
Yeah, well, no, it was, probably the fountain went in not long after the restoration would have happened in the 70s.
Okay.
Hang on, I'm trying to find that image. There we go. So, and it's my understanding from what I can tell that, yeah, this sort of cruciform pattern was something that was introduced in the sometime in the 70s. So it has been there for quite some time. But it was obviously an intervention where they were trying to sort of resolve something with that west lawn.
Right. And then, but the entry points like at the north and the west, those will be maintained. Is that right? And then worked into the,
Yes, yes. We can go back. So
Okay.
yeah, there's that north entry. That's actually the same
Access point.
connection point.
that's the same. Okay.
And the west is actually the same connection point. We do vary the path once you're on there, so it's not just a straight cruciform path anymore. We just felt that was sort of an imposed geometry that didn't make much sense. And then while this south connection is not exactly the same, it's in roughly the same area that the original cruciform connection to the south would have been.
Got it. Okay. And then you've got like the 3 DG like plazas.
Mm-hmm.
The east one being kind of the extents of the street, the west one being one of the original structures. What is the middle one? Does that have representation, or is it just what space that's left that's carved out? Like, what does
I
that
think
mean?
it's sort of space that's left. It would have been sort of the front yard of this house.
Or the sidewalk.
Yeah,
before
and
the
then
building.
this would have been the sidewalk. So in a sense, what we're doing is still kind of using that to organize some of the gardens that we're creating in here. And not being sort of, we're taking inspiration from it, but not being completely literal about it at this point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but it's a header at the landscape, not a wall, right? So it's like the
Yes,
same
here,
grade.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all just a header. This is a wall. That's a seat wall.
Yeah, the walls were used to try to help identify the original buildings that would have been on the west side of the street. And then the headers are used more to kind of define where landscape or site just would have been before, or even pedestrian walkways would have been before the evolution of the street itself.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, hearing that too, and then also Andrew's comment, there's the brick, or there's the header that sometimes represents the edge of the street, sometimes just represents where an edge of the yard is, or where you want to capture the end of the street. So yeah, that's, I guess, being a little more clear about that. If you're using concrete header or brick header, maybe that's a way to distinguish, hey, this is the actual street edge, or this is just a change in material. So yeah, I agree. I appreciate kind of bringing the memory of the original configuration into this is a good way to inform it.
Thank you. And back to Andrew's comment, I mean, this idea of like exposing some of this older infrastructure and geometry of the city from before urban renewal, that was a big idea of this. It's like we're sort of revealing this one little patch, right?
Yeah.
Of that previous grid.
Mhm. Great. Anything else, Savannah?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else on this first part one presentation?
This is Joel. I agree with Savannah and Andrew's comments, and did great. Think it's great design, and I agree with their comments so far. So very good.
Great, thank you, Joel. Jan?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add except to just say I really appreciate how much the design has evolved and been responsive, not only to your ideas of history, but also to the comments that you've received so far. And I just feel like it's a sensitive response to, I think, a somewhat challenging site. So thank you.
I agree.
It is somewhat challenging.
Or more than that.
Right, and the fact that it's been isolated for so long in this other setting, you know, and I think this is great. So, okay, why don't you go ahead then, Michael, with the part two.
Okay, so part two, we'll go ahead and just do the backyard. We'll finish the site, I think, makes some sense. I don't want that. We can turn that off. There we go. Let's see. I want to go back to the original, to our demolition plan. And so in the backyard, some of our main issues are that the bricks, it's fully paved with brick paving right now, and the bricks are, they're all over the place. So we're going to be pulling up all of the brick and resetting it. So we're saving the brick to reset it. We will be making some changes to the hardscape on the south where number 9 is there. We'll talk about that in a minute. We do have a series of existing planters back here that we're going to reconfigure some of those. We are removing this one in the center. There's currently a small dead citrus tree in it.
Yeah, it's a peach tree.
Yeah.
It's only like a 1/2-inch caliper. It's definitely not historical.
And, when they look at using this space as an event space, one of the issues has always been, particularly this planter, you can imagine this as a kind of event space where you could have a performance, that was always sort of in the center of it and causing problems. Now, some of these other planters, I believe we're moving this one just a bit, right?
We're just extending it back to the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the front stays the same side, but it is pushing back to the wall and kind of enhancing to be more of like a seat wall. Right now, it's only about 12 inches high. We're gonna extend it with a cap.
Yep. So we're removing that, or not removing, we're modifying these 3 planters. I'll move to the new plan in just a second. There's a big bougainvillea right here that gets a ton of water off the roof that we're going to take down.
Oleander.
I'm sorry. Because it's out of control.
Yeah, and not favorable to the Adobe in that area too.
Because one thing that we are doing is Eric mentioned, and what Eric means, who's our Adobe expert, has been telling us, is we have to keep the water away from the building, and we have to let the foundations breathe. So if we move to this plan, what you can see is, here's the outside existing masonry wall that's going to remain in place. There is an existing wood gate here that we're going to replace with a metal gate in the same configuration. We're taking out, there's a mix of brick and concrete in this area. We're going to take all of that out and put in a concrete slab, because this is where sort of food trucks or catering trucks will come in, and we want to provide a good flat, sound surface for them to use. But we are leaving a 2-foot slot of space along the building itself to allow the building to breathe, the foundations in the building to breathe. Similar to the west side, that's all going to be left just exposed so they can breathe. And on the north side, there's a shade structure in here that exists that we're going to replace. It's below the height of the existing wall, so you won't see it. We'll be putting in some concrete there as well, because they store tables and chairs there, but then still leaving that same gap along the building to allow the building to breathe. One thing to remember as we talk about the east side of the house.
I'm logged on. God, this thing.
I'm sorry. So the original house is basically in this space, and everything to the east of that was added in the 70s. So we are not pulling the brick away from the building here. but rather what we're gonna do is pick up the 3 downspouts that are coming off of the house. All of the roof drainage from the house goes from west to east, from the high roof to the low roof to the ground, and currently just sort of ponds back here. We're gonna add underground storm drains that are gonna tie all of those downspouts to an existing storm drain outside of the wall here. So once we're done with this project, we will have no standing water behind the house any longer, which was a big goal of ours, again, to protect the house and to make it a safe space. The 3 planters, like we discussed, or actually 4 planters, are slightly reconfigured. And the most important of those is this one, which is the fig. If you haven't seen that fig, it's gorgeous. And
Yeah, it's really one plant. It's like we show it as like a 3 plant. It's obviously like dropped down and re-anchored itself. At least that's the best I can tell when I've looked at it over time. Can't say I'm an expert on figs, but.
And I keep hearing that Father Kino brought that fig.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Came from somewhere, because I guess Mission Garden comes and gets clippings from it.
Okay, yeah.
The grafted.
Yeah, no, they were, growing figs.
Yeah. So like I said, the main changes back here is we'll be putting concrete on the south side of the house. We will have a small ramp here, and I'll discuss that when I talk about the changes to the 70s additions. We'll be relaying all of this brick, and then this area here is outside but under the roof that was added in the 70s. We're going to be relaying that brick as well, which helps us solve an accessibility problem with the back door. I'll talk about that when I talk about the interior changes as well. And I think that's it for this part of the house. Is that right, Eric?
Yeah, correct.
John, any comments on this, and then we'll talk about the restoration, and then I'll talk about the changes to the 70s stuff.
Okay, any questions on this, commissioners?
I don't have any. That's Joel.
Okay. Andrew,
No, I'm good. Looks great.
Great.
Savannah?
Also fine, thank you.
Okay, and how about Jan?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great, perfect. Okay, let's go ahead then with part 3.
Part 3. So again, this whole project started because we know we need to restore the house. It was last restored in about 1972. It was significantly changed though. So what they did in the 70s probably would not be able to be put it on the National Register today based on the extent of the changes. What they did was kind of create an ideal Sonoran house out of what was more of a row house. But at this point, we're kind of taking what we're given and we are going to restore it. The main issues, we did go out and do some digging and some destructive testing to understand what we're really dealing with. What we found is these 2 corners are sinking, which is not a surprise after 150 years. And if you look at the front of the house, you can see some lateral cracks that we have there. We also have 5 doors on the west side of the house that have just gotten beaten by the sun, and there's some termite damage in them. So we've hired Eric Means, who's a local Adobe expert. He's helping us with the Vail Post Office. He's done a lot of different projects around town. He's done a thorough assessment. We dug underneath the building in the corners to understand what the foundation conditions are, and we will be replacing portions of the foundation to stabilize the house. We will be taking all of the cement plaster off of the house on the north, the west, and the south facades where there is adobe. The addition to the house is all slump block from the 70s. So this area of the house is slightly different. But the north, west, and south sides of the house will be peeling off all of that cementous plaster, repairing the adobe itself, and then replastering with lime plaster. The doors and windows will be completely removed. We'll salvage what wood can be reused and rebuild those doors with new material as necessary. But the intent is to keep as much of that original material as we can. With the foundations, that will require that we dig out some portions of this. We'll be digging under the existing foundations and pouring concrete in sections under there to help stabilize the house. We have Eric Means has a structural engineer that he's worked with on these projects, and he's helping us design those systems and the shoring to do this safely. So we feel like we've got the right team to do this. I will say, I think just because of this audience, I think you'd be interested in this. When we dug here and here, there are 5 foundations underneath this house, and they go down about 5 or 6 feet. And the first one is rubble, and then as you go up, you get into cut stone. The third foundation was a beautiful cut stone wall, just absolutely perfect. And then there's another stacked stone foundation on top of that. So what we can see from that is over time, I think with the river flooding, as Main Street began to rise, whether it was from flooding or from just the trail coming through, you know, that the elevation of the city would rise, and whether the house was getting taken out by flooding and then rebuilt, we don't really know, but we know multiple houses were built on this site, although roughly in the same configuration. So it was super fascinating to see some of this stuff, and I can send you some photographs of some of that. As we do the work on the house, we're going to be documenting it and working with Los Des so that we have a really good record of what we find. Because that's going to be, I think, super fascinating as we really get into this. And again, another reason why I'm really interested once we start working in the West Lawn, what we end up finding out there. We are going to have an archaeologist on site monitoring anytime we're digging. We already found some bones, but they were animal. They're all animal. So, and they were found around these foundations, which is normal. You know, we find that every here and there around downtown. We found some pottery, but it was all sort of trade good kind of pottery from the early 20th century. So nothing, certainly nothing prehistoric at this point that we found. But obviously this is a sensitive zone, so we're aware of what's happening there. This, you know, as far as the outside of the house, though, let me jump ahead here to our elevations. Roof plan, there we go. Sorry, I'm getting there. There it is. As I mentioned, you know, the house is, you know, pretty typical, you know, Sonoran house, flat roof. We have canales. The canales on the north side of the house are essentially decorative at this point. The canales on the back of the house, the east side of the house, are functional. You can see we've documented some of the larger cracks, and then the door and window configuration. All of this will go back as it is today. So we're restoring that completely. We are providing a new gate, and we're providing a second gate on the west side, again, just to get access to that. What we're creating is a new event space where the street used to be there. On the west side of the house, I'm sorry, this is the south side of the house. Again, there are no windows currently, so we'll just be restoring the plaster and the adobe, and then introducing a very clear expansion joint between the 70s edition of the slump block and the original adobe, which will happen right along this line here. That's currently not there. It reads as a single wall. So we're going to be rectifying that. If we go to the west or the north elevation, if I can find it, that's it. You can see this is that shade structure. It does not touch the building, and it sits behind the existing block wall, so you will not see it from outside of the site. There is a shade structure there today that we're removing, this wood, and it's falling apart. But similar condition where you can see here, this is the separation from the original adobe to the slump block addition. We'll be introducing a control joint there to make it very clear where that transition happens. And then you can see the canales on the east side of the house coming out. If I scroll up, this is the east side of the house. This upper portion is the original. Well, actually, let me say that again. This upper portion is where the original wall was, but from the photographs that we found of the restoration in the 70s, this wall was essentially taken down entirely and rebuilt out of either slump block or fired adobe. So this is, none of this is original material as far as we can tell. It's also in relatively good shape. So we don't think we need to really strip it to the same degree that we'll be taking the other 3 facades down, because it just doesn't have the same issues with it. If we get in there and find out there is original adobe that is deteriorating, we will shift and we will take the plaster off and repair that wall. And then what you're seeing below that is all of the addition that I'll talk about next. But I think as far as the roof parapet, it's currently a brick parapet. We'll be simply keeping that in place and repairing it where we need to. We are doing a new membrane roof over the whole structure, just, you know, which you can't see because it's a parapet roof. We are gonna maintain the chimney. It's not functional, but we'll maintain it because it's sort of always been there. And doesn't make any sense to make a change to that right now, so. I think that's it. Are there any questions about the restoration?
Okay, I want to start out and say, Michael, I'm really pleased that I was going to ask about an archaeological monitor and you mentioned it. Is that something the city is, they're on board with and funding hopefully for you?
They're not funding it, but they're on board with it.
Oh gosh, well, it's really important, and I think
Yeah.
the Adobe restoration plan is really sound from my years of working on these type of buildings. So
Right.
anyway,
And
well done.
we did submit with everything. We have Eric Means' report and his treatment plan is in there as well. So if
Yeah.
anybody really wants to get the detail of how Eric does this.
Yeah, and that's something that we worked on, for years on major buildings because that doing a treatment plan and documenting it are so critical. And, everyone on the call is, I'm sure, familiar with Adobe restoration, but the fact that it's almost like a little bit of a design build, because you
It is.
get into taking off some of the plaster and then you go, oh, I have this. And, so there may be tiny changes once you're inside those walls and stuff. And really glad to hear that it will be breathable lime plaster on. Hopefully the building, what type of plaster is there now? Hopefully they didn't put cement plaster on.
Oh, no, it's cement. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
And we
good
know
luck.
there are sections of this wall that are dirt. They're now dirt because the Adobe's deteriorated. So,
Yeah, because it leaves fins of Adobe or it completely erode,
yep.
it's out and it's held up by the concrete or the cement. So, okay, well, those are mine. Who would like to go next?
I just had a few questions, Michael. And since you have it up, the west elevation, you mentioned lime plaster with control joints. Where are the control joints proposed? Because historically there were none, right?
Yeah, we're not proposing control joints on this
Oh,
facade. We're only
okay.
adding control joints between where there is the original Adobe structure and the 70s slump block structure on the north and the south facades. So we won't
Oh,
actually
okay.
have any control joints on this facade.
Okay,
Yeah.
glad to hear that. Okay. Yeah, just the general note says control joints. I was confused. Is
Oh,
there new
that-
mechanical equipment that goes on the roof or around the building?
No, and I'll show you where it's going, but it's not going on the roof.
Okay.
Okay.
And then my last question was the canales. Is there like drainage right below on the ground, like where the water collects and moves away? Because there's no downspouts. So what is?
So what's happening is that these on the north, south, and north, south, and west facades, they're decorative. On the south facade, you can see it better here, actually. These canales drain onto this lower pit shed roof, which has a gutter, and that has downspouts that'll come down, and then we'll pick those downspouts up and go into the storm sewer from there.
Okay.
So all of the water currently drains to the east, onto the shed roof, and into the backyard right now. And like I said, we're gonna pick up those downspouts and run them to the storm sewer.
Got it. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Savannah. Who's next?
This is Jan. I don't have any other comments. My only question was about the drainage, so thank you.
Mhm.
Great. Thanks. Andrew?
Yeah, sure. On where you're gonna transition from the Adobe to the slump with the control joint, are you gonna transition stucco materials too? Or is it gonna be lime plaster all the way?
No, I don't, the current stucco on the slump block is in relatively good shape, so we weren't planning on replacing that. So we would simply leave the existing stucco in place, which is a cement stucco. And then, go ahead.
Oh, is there like a textural difference between them?
No,
is
they'll
it-
be the
okay.
same. It's a pretty smooth, not entirely smooth, but it's closer to a sand finish.
Sand to almost like a plastered finish.
Yeah, it's a pretty smooth finish, and we'll maintain that throughout the house.
Okay. And I was wondering if you guys know anything about kind of the chronology of the roof. I saw some pictures from like late sixties, early seventies when
Mhm.
a lot of the demo was happening, and it had this like horrible makeshift gable roof over
Yep.
the whole thing. I imagine
Yeah.
that was removed when the restoration happened.
It was removed and the parapet walls were raised. You know, it was a pretty typical transitional Sonoran, you know, where they would have put a tin roof on it, you know, when the railroad came through. So it would have been a flat, you know, prior to that, it would have had a flat roof with the vigas, and, you know, the cactus ribs and then, you know, mud and dirt to make the roof system. Once the railroad came through, they started, and the sheet metal came in, they would have put a pitched roof on it. And it was pretty normal. And you still see some in Barrio Viejo that have those metal roofs on them. In the 70s, when they restored this house, they took all of that off. And like I said, they returned it to almost a kind of idealized Sonoran house. So they raised the parapet walls, they made the roof flat again, they put the canales back on. So the house has been through quite a transformation, I think, over its 150 years.
Yeah. I'm
And
wondering,
it's currently actually a double roof. So the ceiling you see inside the house is actually decorative. That was done in the 70s as a series of beams with different materials. Some they're trying to show different materials that were used in the ceiling. So some is ocotillo, some is saguaro. And then there's actually a cavity above that where the HVAC system runs. And then there are larger beams that support the roof system above that. Now you can't see any of that, nor do you perceive it. You know, I didn't know that until we actually started poking around the house to understand there was actually a cavity up there. But it works really well because you don't see the mechanical system, you know, within the house. So we weren't going to change any of that.
yeah, that's cool. That's always a challenge on the old Viga roofs. I'm wondering, so you're keeping all of the decorative canales, right?
Mhm. We are.
Okay. Yeah. I'm a little torn on that because I think architecturally I do like them on the front. That the front is kind of so stark without, that's like the only ornamentation,
Yeah.
but it is like definitely a 1970s like idealized, you know, applied ornament. So I don't know how I feel about that, but I think
I
I'm
mean,
okay.
they appear genuine, they just don't function.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
true. Do they like do they vent that roof space at all, or they're just tacked on there?
Not that I haven't seen any events.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think that's my only questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Joel?
No, I have no further comment. It looks good.
Great.
Okay, perfect. Let's move on to the next part.
All right, the last part. So with the back of the house, again, it's kind of there were a few things we needed to accomplish. Go back one plan, here we go. So this is the existing plan. Let me zoom in a little bit on this. If you're not familiar with the house, I'll walk you through it real quick. So here's the front door. There's sort of a central zaguan like you traditionally see, series of rooms off to the side. You can clearly see where the original house was. It's undeniable. This is the 70s edition that was put on, and what they added was a small men's restroom here. There's a mechanical space here that's open air. None of these are conditioned. There is a door here and a little ramp here. This is a covered patio. This is a kitchen. And then there's a hallway that squeaks through, and there's a women's restroom. Now, the issue with all of this is none of it's accessible. The equipment doesn't fit and doesn't function. And we can't really, the back door is not accessible either. So what we decided to do, we tried to work within the existing outlines. We're staying under the existing roof line though. So that the appearance of the house from like the central plaza of the Tucson Convention Center will not change significantly. So it'll have the same roof line, it'll have the same appearance. We're reconfiguring what's happening under the roof though. So this is the new plan. We are making one change to the house that I'll tell you about, the actual historic house. But what we're doing to the addition is we're removing that men's room, enclosing this as a larger mechanical room. And back to your question, Savannah, that's where all the mechanical equipment's going. This is fed off of the TCC central plant, so we get chilled and hot water, and that's how we run our mechanical system. So it's actually pretty compact but we still need space for it. We're going to, like I said, we're going to relay these bricks to have a better slope so we can remove the step at the back door so the back door becomes accessible. We're reconfiguring the restrooms entirely so we have a men's room and a women's room that are fully accessible, and then those doors kind of face north. So as you come out of the house, it'll be fairly obvious kind of where the doors to the restrooms are. And then we're building a new sort of kitchen. This will not be a commercial kitchen. There's no hood. This is more of a catering kitchen, kind of break room space. And we are adding a door in the 70s edition here so that the catering trucks and the catering and whoever's working these events will have access into the kitchen and back out. So we saw this as a kind of work area, more or less, for when there are events going on in the house. So we're taking out some of the original slump block, but we're keeping the columns that are there now, the roof structure that's there now, the roof itself. There's nothing wrong with it. It's pretty nice, actually. And it's kind of the way everyone's been perceiving the house for quite some time. The one modification we'd like to make, and just want some feedback from you on, is there is a window here. And it's been requested that we remove that window and create a door so that that kitchen can have direct access into the house as well as out to the site. So it does appear to be an original window. I'm not sure if I have photographs of it. I should have brought those, but
Yeah, I don't have everything.
But in any event, that's the only modification we've talked about to the house, and it's inside the house. It's inside the house currently, and it will be inside the house in the future. So it's not something that can be seen from the public way. So, and that's really the extent of the changes.
Great. Questions, folks?
This is Joel. The change in the window is fine. I think to connect the kitchen to the house. You hate to do that sometimes, but it seems like a necessary improvement. That's my only comment.
Thank you, Joel. Next.
I'll go. The other windows there, are those still there, Michael? Yeah, right. Is it just boarded up?
This one actually has been covered up already. And then this
Okay.
one will remain. That one is still there and functional.
You can see that one from both sides.
Yes, that's a functioning window.
And then the other one, can you see it from the room side?
I can't remember now.
From what side?
This window, do you remember? If you can see that, I can't.
I don't believe so, but I don't remember.
But
it doesn't stand out one right there.
It's there, like it's an original window. And does it?
I don't think it's original because that back wall was rebuilt in the 70s. So I actually don't think those windows are original to the house. My best guess and what I've seen is that they're still wood windows and they're of the same type, but they were later added in the 70s. That window is probably there and is probably seen from the inside of the house today, based on the original plan.
Yeah.
Is it similar to the one you're taking out? Same
Yes.
case? It's okay. Yeah, and is it like the right head height, or do you have to like put
It
in a new
is.
lintel?
The head height is okay. We'll just be taking it out underneath.
Okay. Yeah, it seems fine to me. So the last part I don't understand is the part that projects. It doesn't project out from the roof line, no? Or
No.
it just goes right up to it?
Goes right, just short of it. So the roof line is right there. So it
Oh,
falls
okay.
just short of it, which the original kind of does too. Sorry, this is always temperamental. You can see that kitchen really sticks out almost at the edge of where that roof line is. We didn't dash in the roof line here. I'm sorry about that, but
About a 2-foot overhang.
yeah, the existing kitchen is at the edge of the roof right now. So we're simply repeating that to have enough
Got it.
space to get the restrooms to work.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me. And my last question is is the existing back door the one that's been there, and is it wide enough to be accessible?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes and yes.
So you're keeping it?
We are.
Okay.
And it's
Cool.
in good shape. It's been shaded. It's, I don't know if it's probably not from 1850. It's probably from 1970, but there's no, but it appears to be in context as far as I can tell.
That's all I had. Thank you. Looks good.
Thanks, Nick.
This is Jan. No, I appreciate that the space is made practical and functional now and that's still compatible. So thank you.
Thank you, Jan.
Andrew?
Yeah, are you guys considering like any windows in the bathroom and kitchen, like for daylight, or those are totally like opaque assemblies?
Yeah, they're currently totally opaque space.
Okay. That's all I had. Looks good.
Thank you. That was everyone, I think. And so that's do you have any other final details for us, Michael, or?
That's it.
Okay, let's so PRS members, let's discuss quickly. What is our motion going to look like? Are there things we want to call out?
Oh, yeah. Oh, hang on a
Oh.
second. I'm sorry.
We didn't discuss the shade structure and the issues.
Yeah, we didn't show, yeah. Eric just mentioned that to me too.
Yeah, sorry, I remembered it and then I forgot, sorry.
Let me bring the plan back up. Let's see, if we go back to the landscape plan.
Does
Yeah,
it
that's fine.
relate to historic? Because DRB reviews shade study.
It doesn't necessarily relate to historic, but I think the reason that we are not being compliant with this shade study in the context of what the shade study for IID or design review board would review it is the fact that we are dealing with historical structures that are adobe and we cannot provide shade in a manner that would be in context with the historical nature of this project. So our take on it is that we are providing shade trees and shade that are applicable, that will shade the space for events and activities. And because this postage stamp parcel is part of the overall PAD, we are in excess of the overall shade compliant component. And therefore, we believe we are adhering to the goals of design review board, IID, and historic preservation, addressing all the needs that were requested of us.
Got it. Okay, so we might be able to address our opinion on an exception to the rule to help to help DRB then approve
That
it.
would be great because we don't believe we should be putting trees. Basically, that's the shade study for our site specifically. But putting trees on the east side of Old Main Street is not
Yeah, we don't.
we can't do that. It's just not something that we can do and feel comfortable that whatever restoration work and things are done, that's going to be beneficial to us.
Yeah. And the intent of this in terms of the interpretation of the site is that that's a street, right? So
yes,
that's another area. We don't really want trees in that zone either, which then
actually in the road, yes, it wouldn't make any sense. I mean, if we looked at the historical documents, trees were added within the sidewalk spaces as you went up and down a Main Street, but again, they were further back and again, not right up against the building. So that also kind of went to the canales, the site drains opposite, right? The building drains the opposite direction. You really want to drain the site, but that's how it is. And there's storm drain, that's infrastructure, it's already there. So we're just running with the already infrastructure in place to be beneficial overall.
Yeah.
Did you are like shade sales solution with the DRB shade requirement? Or
So
is it really...
I guess our position on that again is we are trying to respond to the landscape in context, in that any special event element, they would bring their own temporary shade elements so that we're not adding to that complexity and pulling away from the historical context of the project.
The other thing is the PAD for the TCC clearly states the house has to be visible from Granada.
Correct.
So if we start adding shade structures or anything out here to do that, then we're going to be obscuring the house and be in violation of the PAD.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was worried about, is like DRB might see the overhead cables with the lights over like Main Street and go like, just throw a shade sail on it, and I don't think that would be appropriate. Yeah,
We believe temporary, so since that space is really like to be utilized as an event space, shading that entire plaza space really is not valid. You don't shade streets. I mean,
Yeah.
at least not in Arizona. Maybe
Yeah.
back east you do, but that's a different topic.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yes, Madam Chair, I think DRB is they recognize some hardship that comes along with shade study, what they present to them. I think this particular presentation is more appropriate for them to present at a DRB,
Mhm.
the hardship involved. It's not particularly a requirement for historical review.
Yeah, I mean, my comment to that, Michael, would be that I think if they require us to do something, it would be in violation of what we're trying to do in terms of historic preservation. So I think
Yes.
there's an inherent conflict there.
Yeah, but that.
And hopefully they understand that, but I understand it's really their,
It's really their
Yeah.
privilege, so you should present that to them.
yes.
Yeah.
And if it becomes necessary that they need to ask for guidance from the historic
Okay.
review, what they
I don't-
think about.
I think, I mean, that got to the point I was raising at the beginning as would it come back to us if they were requiring
Exactly.
shade structures? And I think there are things we can do preemptively to describe our understanding of what would be more historically appropriate and in support of how it's being presented, and at least state that up front so it's part of the record for DRB as they weigh the importance of the shade structures. And obviously, you know, if they were to add it later, then it would have to come back to us, which also has scheduling implications.
Right.
Yes.
Correct.
Right.
And, we did not get any negative response from Landscape Subcommittee either. Helen and Steve were both favorable
Yep.
regarding the shade and the different issues. And we know we're threading a needle, right, through the different
Yeah.
aspects of shade, water harvesting, you know, and all these different elements that come into play for site development of this significance. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and
I
think-
guess it
Go ahead.
seems like appropriate that we could speak to it and because it is an element of this design, even though shade per se isn't our purview, just recognizing that it's not an appropriate location for, say, more trees or shade structures, that we appreciate the approach that's being taken, something like that.
Right, and the
Okay.
trees, you know, they really shouldn't be close to that house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, yeah,
So,
go ahead.
Ms. Majeski, members of the PRS. So as you present in your motion, you know, you may want to include, please, some language related to that, so the DRB is aware. And we understand, you know, historic preservation supersedes a lot of zoning requirements, so having that information will be valuable. And also I wanted to ask you or the applicant, do you have the legal action report from the landscape subcommittee? The only one I have is from April 25.
I have not seen it yet, so we will need to get that.
We got a draft and that was sent.
Okay.
Let me double check. If
Not-
I may have it to review and submit, which I can do by tomorrow morning.
That
me
would
just-
be very helpful, so we can provide it as well to the DRB.
I can tell you that all they provide, their legal action report only has a motion. And it was that Commissioner Erickson moved to accept the plan as presented, giving recognition to the historically sensitive work of the team. Commissioner Lamb seconded, motion passed 4-0. So that's all that's in the legal action report is their motion to approve and appreciation.
Okay, and what date was that, Ms.
That was the 5th of December.
Let me,
Thanks,
I'm not,
Jen.
yeah,
Thank you.
I'm looking for it. I don't believe I
We got an
received it.
email, early email from John Burr, and then Michael sent it to all of us like at 12:30, but that was pretty much what John sent earlier, but he may have only sent it to you and me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so where are we? Does anyone else want to comment on the shade structure? or do we have ideas where we want to go with that mention in the motion? Maria or Michael, would we say that we recommend that the shade study be waived?
I don't think that is,
I would, so this is Eric. I would actually just say, I mean, we say that we are providing 30%. So we're basically 14% shy on our specific site. With, being part of the overall PAD, we are in compliance with that being over, so that was like 55% of the overall site with the acreage of the PAD itself. That's how I would reference it to Design Review Board and IAD.
I mean,
And
we didn't get, I mean, I was looking at the PAD now. We didn't get it submitted in our materials, but so we're relying on you to tell us those percentages.
yeah, so yeah, it does, the plan I've got right now, it says, shade study, public, hardscape area required 50%. If you can move that over to the right a little bit, or zoom back, is that, oh, okay. It just gives the percentages on this page here. I don't have that
Okay.
actual sheet.
We could then approve as presented.
Yeah,
or
so
something
right
like
now
that.
so the public hardscape was like 14,400. And the requirement is 7,199. And what we provided on our site is 5,120. And then if you go to the next page, up, yep, that up in the up right-hand corner.
Sorry, these are.
Yeah, these are
This-
massive files. 'cause
Is
these
the
are-
far west street also required to be shaded? Sorry, not the street, the sidewalk?
So it's basically just a percentage calculation. It doesn't,
Okay.
some can be shaded and some not. And in this case, our overall public hardscape on the overall site was 306,192 square feet. Requirement it was 50% is 153,097, and hardscape shading provided was 56% or 173,796. And that was submitted with our final documentation. I
Yeah, we
believe.
did submit this.
So, we looked at this in great detail because, as well, Susanna knows that I'm pretty particular about the shade study and making sure we provide shade. And we knew we were going to be deficient on the site just based on orientation and what we're trying to adhere to.
Ms. Majewski, if I can ask the applicant. So Eric, the drawing I'm seeing here right now, are those for June 21st at noon?
It's June 21st at 2 p.m. I'm not sure where this 11 to 2 period changed from.
That's one of the revisions we were requesting because back in December 23, Mayor and Council approved modifications to the requirement.
Okay.
Instead of 2 p.m., it should be 12 noon. And it should be spelled out here.
I'll look at it, change it. It's not gonna, I mean, so it's gonna drop 1%, if that, it's
Yeah,
not gonna
that's
change
fine.
our overall, but yeah, we'll look at that.
But we
I
need
guess
to
I was
have
confused.
the correct measurements for the correct time and day.
Yeah, I think we did change that. My apologies, Matt, my office was put that together, I think, and
just change it.
But it still seems like for the purposes of our review, we could say something more. I mean, we don't have to get into the weeds of the shade requirement, but basically concurring with the approach of the designers that this is consistent with honoring the historic resource, and that our recommendation is that it be allowed to progress as presented, something along those lines.
that would be great.
That would.
Sounds good. I just messaged everyone what the LAR said for that motion on this case at HLS.
Thank you, Mr. Chris.
Sure, but I will get that, we'll get it officially posted and make sure you are copied on that when it's posted and ready. Okay, so does anyone else want to comment, or who would like to start formulating a motion?
I've got some notes, I think, like two conditions that I think might
Mhm.
help reinforce
go for
what
it.
we're talking about. I'll go over the conditions real quick, make sure we're on board, but the one would be that areas around the adobe wall foundations shall be exposed and kept free of vegetation as shown to ensure long-term preservation of the adobe walls. And then the hardscape materials in the central plaza should be refined to more strongly delineate the historic boundary of Main Street. I think both of those kind of reinforce the big ideas behind the shade issue.
I guess I would offer, Andrew, in terms of the first one that you mentioned, just not to beat a dead horse, but something to say that we're supportive of no additional vegetation or shade structures. Something that's not the most articulate bit,
Yeah, I agree.
because it's not just the, who knows what somebody's idea could be, whether it's shading the street or.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe that we're supportive of the strategy for the areas around the foundation walls to keep them clear of vegetation or
Well,
other.
I guess my point is to broaden it.
Oh, got
It's
you.
not that, that was brought up the possibility of shade structures over the plaza or even trees further back that would still obscure the view of the house.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree. It's
Trying to be
kind
a
of,
little more generic about our concern or interest in keeping it pretty much as presented.
Okay.
I mean, because it's the whole site too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something about how it's responsive to the historic context as
Exactly.
presented.
Okay. So, okay. As kind of like a third bullet
Yeah,
That's fine.
in
I would
that.
recommend a third.
Okay. So that we find that like the landscape design is responsive to the historical context and or the historical conditions and the overall context of TCC
Well, it's not
Something
just
like
the
that.
landscaping, it's the shading.
Yeah.
shading. We find that the landscape and shading strategies as presented
Could say are adequate and responsive to the historic condition.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so Andrew, do you want to go ahead and make that motion unless commissioners, you have other thoughts?
No, I think that's great.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. On the matter of SD 1024-00104 at 151 South Granada Avenue, the Sosa Carrillo Fremont House. I recommend approval of the project as presented with the following conditions. That the areas around the adobe wall foundations shall be kept exposed and free of vegetation to ensure long-term preservation of the adobe. That hardscape materials in the central plaza should be refined to more strongly delineate the historic boundary of Main Street, and that we find that the landscape and shading strategies as presented are adequate and responsive to the historic conditions.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Great.
Okay, is there further discussion? Okay, if not, I'll go ahead and call roll. Terry Majewski votes aye. Andrew Christopher,
Aye.
Jan Mulder,
Aye.
Savannah McDonald,
Aye.
Joel Ireland,
Yes.
and Commissioner Reel is not present. Okay, this passes 5-0 unanimously. So thank you. And Andrew, if you could email that motion
Yep.
to Michael, that would be really helpful.
Would you please also include me?
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
and hopefully we will have Michael, hopefully we will get this LAR posted maybe before DRB, or at least they'll have the motion. So let me take a quick look at the motion once Andrew sends it, and then I'll say this is ready to put in. But it looks good. It sounds good to me.
Okay, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the
Thank
great
you.
presentation. Good luck with the project and with DRB next week.
Mhm.
So I hate to ask you this, folks, but I need a bio break for like 1 minute, if you don't mind.
Gonna suggest-
So if everybody just sit tight for a minute, I'll be right back, literally.
Yeah, we're sticking around too.
Yeah.
Got us for.
Shake a leg. Oh, we can get back into the restroom in here? or-
Yeah, you can come use this.
Otherwise we get locked out.
Yeah.
Thank you, I'm back. And I also had to check that why the dog was barking so he wouldn't irritate us more, or me specifically. Okay, so we have the presenter for case 4A present. Is that true?
I think it's, I'm sorry.
Michael?
I think they took a break too.
Oh, okay, they're taking longer, and I said less than a minute. Oh, gosh.
I'm just waiting for Michael to go.
Okay, so
Give me 1 second, thank you.
we'll go right ahead. Oh, and I forgot to say welcome again to Savannah for rejoining PRS. We're very happy about that. And
Thank you, me as well, and thank you for accommodating.
yeah, and I really appreciate everyone being on today, and for waiting for me for my latest craziness.
Oh,
Okay, no, Michael's not back yet.
Michael's not back. Eric's not back yet either.
Okay.
So, Ms. Majeski, members of the PRS, so the next case you'll be hearing is the Armory Park?
No, I think that isn't Bob Rogan, didn't he join from DTM? So
Yeah,
that would be
he's
4A.
here. Mhm.
That would be 4A. So we'll go back to 4A very quickly. And
Okay.
I think, the Sosa Creo Fremont House was longer and more involved. So hopefully we'll move through these others.
I don't know. Armory Park's a big one.
So Bob, when you present your project, feel free to share your screen.
Should I go ahead and call that case?
Yes, please. Ms.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that then. So we'll move back to case 4A, which is TRROW 0424-00497 at 2500 North Oracle Road. And this is for the Oracle and Alturas Hawk Lights, right? Hawk Lights right of way. There's a typo in the agenda. Installing a new Hawk pedestrian signal, removal of the ramps to replace with new ADA compliance ramps, temporary ADA ramp and sidewalk available for pedestrians 24 hours. This is a full review. It's a capital investment project, a CIP. So Maria, do you have background on this project? Or should we move right into the presentation?
We can move into the presentation, Madam Chair.
Okay, so that would be Mr. Rogan. How do you say your name, sir?
Yeah, close enough. I can't share. It says I'm disabled.
Oh, okay.
No.
Hold on, we'll let you, I'll make you the co-host. You're good to go, sir.
See if I know how to work this.
Zoom is
Um,
much easier than Teams.
We'll see. I'm so used to Teams that,
Alright.
It's coming. I see a tiny little piece of your screen.
okay, let's see what did I do? Well, give me a
Mike,
minute. Give me a minute.
okay.
Don't know why it's well,
Maybe if you, there you go.
can you see that?
can
Is
need
that
it, yeah.
is that very good?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. And I'm not very used to Zoom. So I just wanted to start out with Google Earth. This is the location on this particular project is Alturas and Oracle. We're wanting to build a hawk. It's a crossed Oracle, and this is a community development block grant that they're funding the construction. And as you can see, there's not very much there. It's this corner and this corner. And so what will I do here now? Let's see. I need to get back to well, okay. I'm having a difficult time here. So we'll go back to share again. And let me, okay. Is that better?
It's okay for me. It's a little small, but I can make a full screen.
You bet. That's
There we go.
so this is to the right of the screen is it's Oracle Road. To the right of the screen is south, and to the left is north. We're trying to cross a handicap hawk high intensity crosswalk. And this is pretty standard. You've seen them all over town. The ground disturbance will be a new handicap ramp on the southwest corner, which is right there, and a new handicap ramp on the southeast corner, and a pole. This is a W pole, or a W mast arm, so it's 65 feet long. There'll be two of them, one on each pole. And other than striping, there will be some striping changes, but other than that, that's the ground disturbance is two handicap ramps. And the handicap ramps are actually, the existing are fairly new, I would think within probably 7-8 years, but we're enlarging them because we're enlarging them, and then we're having to take and put the foundation for the poles in, and then we'll put the handicap ramps back. So that's the extent of the project. There's really not much else I can tell you about it, I don't think. So if there's any questions specifically, I'd entertain those.
Okay, let's start with questions. Who will go first?
I mean, I'll just comment. I don't have any questions. I'm just happy to see it. We're adding a whole bunch of units on that west side with Milagro and Oracle, so I think it'll get used well. So thanks.
Great. Anything else?
No, looks good to me.
Yeah, I'm good.
Jan?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. So who would like to do a motion for us?
I'll do it. I'm a little out of practice.
Get going then.
All right, on the matter of TR-ROW-0424-00497 at 2500 North Oracle Road, I move to recommend approval of the project as presented.
Perfect. Who will second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Beautifully done, by the way, Savannah. No, she's been away for a bit, Bob. That's why I'm teasing her. So, anyway, any
Thank you for-
further discussion? No? Okay, then I'll go ahead and call roll. Terry Majewski votes aye. Joel Ireland,
Yeah, yes,
Jen Mulder,
Aye.
Andrew Christopher,
Aye.
Savannah McDonald.
Aye.
Great, thank you. It passes 5-0, and noting that Commissioner Riojas not present. All right, let's thank you very much. And let's move on to case 4C, which is SD 0924-00098/CIP 0924-00032 at 222 South Fifth Avenue. This is a courtesy review in Armory Park Historic Preservation Zone for the removal of the existing stage, plaza area, and games area, restroom renovation for ADA compliance, addition of a central plaza with overhead shade structure, addition of trees, parking, lighting, new benches and tables, renovate sidewalks, addition of dog park, parking improvements. This is Armory Park is a contributing resource. It's we're using the rehabilitation standards, and I know that Historic Landscapes reviewed this previously, right, prior to this past week. So do we want to discuss those minutes, or Jan, do you want to say anything about that since you're on that subcommittee?
Yeah, let me, and I apologize, Terry, when I was talking about what we had received, was the Armory Park from John Byrne, not the Sosa Carrillo House. I was conflating
no worries.
them.
No worries.
Yeah, I think they went to the same meeting last, which was the one I was not in attendance at. And let me see, I don't think it was a little more extensive. I think
Let me
you
see if
just
I
got,
can. Do you want me to see if I can find it? Are you still there, everyone?
yeah,
Okay, let me open up this file.
oh, they weren't at the last meeting,
No,
is
it
that
was the
right?
one-
They were at the Armory Park meeting last, but yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna try to find this. And Michael, you don't have it in front of you?
No, Madam Chair.
The, there wasn't a motion taken at the last Historic Landscape Subcommittee meeting. And
It
there
was-
was no motion, and so really I've got the LAR in front of me.
Okay, go
and
ahead. Nan.
It's pretty much, I can tell you what it is. It's more of a summary of the presentation, but it just noted that Mr. Becker and Mr. Smith gave a progress update. The performance space with a permanent structure will be centrally located and facing toward the west. The senior center will be the backdrop. The bocce and shuffleboard courts will be removed. Actually, I think this is the meeting before the last meeting. No, this is the last meeting. Is this the last? No. This is the next to the last meeting. It's been to so many places, so many times. I apologize. I've lost track. So yeah, I do know that, well, yeah.
I think the last HLS prior to 12/5 was it 10/31?
Yes.
Correct.
And for some reason, I'm not finding those, so, but yes,
Okay.
it was 10/31.
Let me see where this is.
Madam Chair, that the earlier that I sent to you today, this case B, briefly talks about what the Historic Landscape Subcommittee has said on October 31st.
Uh,
I'm trying to find this.
I'm trying to find it.
Sorry.
It's 10:31.
Yeah, and it should have Steve should have sent it out. Here it is. Okay, from Steve. All right, so let's see. All right, so they did a complete review of Armory Park, and HLS discussion and recommendations focused on 4 areas: the performance area, the planting design, dog run area, and restrooms. For the performance area, they passed a motion approving the 10/31/24 concept with the following recommendations. The planters be replaced by low seat wall platforms. The seat wall platforms be faced with a mountain stone, ideally repurposing existing material to reference the historic photo of the original band shell. Third, the rear of the structure be designed in such a way to facilitate the installation of stage materials such as scenery or acoustic panels. And last, the central turf area be replaced with hardscape for functionality. The central area of the park was not historically turf. Okay, then for the planting design, they passed a motion that they approved of the 10/31/24 plan with the following recommendation: 2 Italian cypress trees that came down in the recent storm be replaced in kind. In the dog run area, they approved the 10/31/24 design with the following revisions: the walkway between the small and large dog runs be removed so that the small dog run can shift east about 15 feet to the east, making the overall intrusion smaller, and that the dog runs be accessed from 12th Street. And HLS declined to comment that on the design of the restroom, but suggested as many fixture units as possible be incorporated into the design. So would it help if I emailed this to people, or it's been posted now for quite a while? And I mean, this one has been in, right, for a while. Yes, you want it, you don't want it?
I'm fine.
That does I just found my copy and I apologize for not having that available, but that does raise the issue. It'd be really helpful for all of us if we just got those as part of the packet when it's been around a while. And I don't know if that's.
I don't.
All right, I lost you
Anyway.
for some reason. So what I'm going to do is send. Can you hear me again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So did I completely lose you on reading the LAR? Oh,
I got it.
I got you. I have a copy too.
okay, good. All right. So, so Michael, you're presenting this one as well?
Yeah, Eric and I are.
Okay. So will you go over like anything that, because we're doing a courtesy review for you as well. Would they have included the comments from HLS in what you'll be presenting?
Yes, I believe so. I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, just so that we get that on the record that we did.
And then
listen to
is somebody's gonna also review the comments from Armory Park, because they saw it, what, a few days ago?
Yeah,
Okay,
2 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah, they saw this November 19th.
that. And so who's gonna summarize those for us?
I can do that, Madam Chair. So Michael and the team, they went to Amory Park on the Tuesday, November 19th, with the same plans that they are going to present to you today. And this was the action that was taken by the Amory Park Historical Advisory Board. It's contained in the draft legal action report that I sent to you late this afternoon. A motion was made to recommend the plantings, shade structure, bathroom renovation, and other discussed and agreed elements of the revised plans as presented and as shown during the meeting. With the condition the board does not recommend approval of the dog park. It recommends the minimized impact plan shown as an intrusion if approved. And with the understanding that details such as lighting, or colors, pavement patterns and surfaces, etc., will be brought back for future review, consideration, and recommendation. The motion passed by a roll call vote of 6 in favor and 0 opposed. This was the action taken by Amory Park.
Okay, thank you.
I come to you today just as a courtesy review, meaning that they will then, once they finalize everything, return to PRS for a full review and recommendation. That is why you are taking no action today. We're just seeking feedback from you based on what they have done so far. And they will be back to you again for a formal review where you will have to take action. That will end my report. If there's any question for staff, I'll be willing to answer at this point.
Okay. So do you want to go ahead and start the presentation, Michael Becker, instead of Michael Teku? Too many
So-
Michaels.
Too many Michaels. This time it's Eric.
All right, so-
Dash.
Yeah, so this is Eric Barrett. I'm with ARC Studios. Matt Smith in my office decided to go work for Pima County, and his last day was last Friday. I thought we'd be done with this project, but we're still moving forward. Just some brief context real quick, knowing that I believe this is the first time that you've seen this project. You may have talked to other constituents about the different processes we've gone through. The project overall, Army Park, is part of the bond, 407 funding. And our action was to basically, restore the park to historical context of the 1950s, as directed by Steve Greedy and Helen Erickson. We met with them. We've been working on this project for a good year and a half now. We met with Steve Greedy and Helen Erickson over right when we started this project. And then during that time, we've also had a lot of outreach with Parks and Recreation Department to the community at large. The feedback from the community at large came back to the request of providing the bond requirements are to provide more shade, provide a restroom facility, restore the landscape site itself, and it adds site lighting and security measures. That was the primary objection of the bond or directives of the bond. Through our feedback from the community, the biggest request was first to provide a playground. Second was to provide a dog park or dog run or some applicable component of that. And third was to consider the stage and providing a shade canopy over the stage or relocating the stage, and we'll dive into that more. And then obviously site lighting and other securities. So in discussions with city managers and council members for direction moving forward, along with Parks and Recreation, it was determined to not move forward with any type of playground, that they would look at other locations for that to move forward in the future that would not be on this site. We were asked to incorporate a small dog park, small dog run that would service basically the direct neighborhood around it, with the recent addition of several multi-story, multifamily housing structures that have gone up along with the existing ones, and support the 16 senior center that's on site. Last item was we were basically told to not install a separate building structure for restrooms, knowing that there was already the restroom facility that was on site. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. The restroom facility is basically located at the northwest corner of the building. It just, quite honestly, no one really knew it was there. It's really kind of hidden in that area. So we, based on all these findings, we've now come to move forward with this plan with several reviews from the Army Park neighborhood. I think we're on our third review from them with basically final acceptance for what we're proposing. And landscape review, we're second review. And obviously we didn't want to come to PRS until we knew we had our ducks in order and got a general game plan acceptance from the overall community. So with that said, moving forward, we are maintaining the historical geometries of the crossing access with the central plaza. We are maintaining or actually restoring a central plaza. We are removing the stage that's located on the south side of the site entirely and locating it more centrally located to reflect the historical context of what was in the, there's 53 pages of this document. So I'm just going to kind of go over it and then we can jump through the other parts of it. There's the original historical band shell that used to be on the very far east end of the site.
Here somewhere.
Yeah, in that location before that was torn down and the senior center built and the modifications of the site. We are currently, one thing I didn't bring up is currently the central plaza space with the drive access and what's being used in the site is more or less a parking lot for city staff and other user groups that are looking to use the senior center. So part of our proposal was to basically omit that from being allowed in the future. And the way to offset that was to provide some parking on Fifth Avenue as an option as an alternative for parking on the park itself.
This is kind of the existing condition of the park.
Yeah.
Sorry, I lost it.
Yeah. So with that moving forward, knowing this, again, the courtesy review, and I know we've already taken a lot of your time, we've modified the dog run to not encroach as much to the south of the park. It's more aligning to the north. We've met with Helen Erickson on site, staked out what we had originally proposed, and this is the final configuration of what was generally accepted by both Landscape Historical Subcommittee and Armory Park as the best representation of providing a dog park, dog run within a public space, knowing that the fencing could be removed at any point if this amenity was no longer a desired component of the park, similar to where we currently have, that's currently the location of the horseshoes and shuffleball courts, an activity that's really not utilized anymore and in disrepair. We are replacing that with turf grass dog run that would serve as the current desired amenity that is highly needed amongst the community. Second, we wanted to maintain a very strong north-south access through the west side, along the west side of the senior center. And we wanted to draw more attention to the back door and refocus the revisited canopy and band shell to be more of a centrally focal point and create a smaller plaza that was more reflective and representative of the context from really like 1910, 1908 images that we had seen in historical documentation. From that vegetation, where the original vegetation on site was all ash, at one point in the 50s, the crossing axis became Italian cypress. In our discussions with Historic Landscape Subcommittee, we've talked about creating succession trees, and knowing that the Italian cypress have a struggle in our environment, that we are looking to create a succession planting of live oaks that would slowly mature over time, and also during that time, the Italian cypress, as they age out, could be removed, and we maintain that evergreen colonial canopy walkway that's created there. I think at this point, I'm gonna stop talking and let you guys let
Want me to talk a little bit?
Michael dive into what has been extensive evaluations of the canopy and what that could look like, and how it could be contextually historical representative
Yeah.
of what we have here.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time kind of studying the park to come up, part of the bond was about creating a shade, some kind of shade structure. So, how do you do that in a park like this? We are removing the existing band shell that's there today. So that is being removed under this project. Quickly before I do that, though, there's the restroom consideration. Like Eric said, we're simply modifying the existing building. This image on the top here shows the existing restroom opening. We're going to be opening the wall up with some coiling overhead doors, so these are more exposed restrooms like we're doing in other parks. It's about safety and security, so people can see into the restroom. The police can see into the restroom. There are stall doors that are being installed, inside that space. But during business hours, these roll-up doors or coiling doors would be open, and there's a sink sort of out in that area. It's under the roof of the existing building, so there's no new structures on the in the park to accommodate this. We're just renovating the existing restrooms. Currently they're very small, they're very private. Somebody can blockade themselves in there. So we've been asked to deal with those issues, but we can come back to that. Let me run through this presentation. So we've done a lot of kind of research on the park. This is sort of what exists today. We're looking from the south across the center of the park. That's the existing band shell. There's the west door to the senior center, and this is the kind of center of the plaza there. You can see the Italian cypress on the left and the palms on the right. We've gone back to look at some older photographs. This is from roughly, the 60s. You can see the cruciform was still evident at this point. There's sort of an amorphous central plaza, and I have some plans. You can see how that changed over time. There was a band shell on the west side of the Armory building, and that's what you're seeing here is the Armory building. So 6th Street is on the right. There's the Children's Museum. So yeah, it's kind of one of the earlier photographs. If we go back in time, this is that band shell. And when we talked about the Mount A stone that was mentioned in the LAR, that's what we're talking about. There was a base of the volcanic stone that was the base of this original band shell. Now, I didn't realize till we found this photograph that the band shell was here first, and the Armory building was built behind it, which I always found interesting. I always thought it was one building from the photographs I had seen. This is a bit of an earlier photograph when it was called Washington Park. You can see there's a clear central round plaza, and it's a very clear cruciform plan. There's the Carnegie Library across the street. And then going back even further, this is 1891 when it was Military Plaza with very little organization whatsoever. These are just basically footpaths that developed over time. But it's been, obviously this has been a very central feature to Tucson for a very long time, and we appreciate the importance of this space and its history. Valerie in my office found this photograph, which was, of Camp Lowell, and the kind of military installations that were used. And what we were doing with that was just trying to find form for this new canopy. So I'll talk about that in a little bit more in just a second as well. These are just the plans we found from over time. This is the oldest drawing we could find, which was probably from the mid-60s. So you can see the Armory building, the band shell is there, the shuffleboard courts, and this sort of amorphous central plaza as the concrete was repaired and changed over time. Then we get into a little later in the 60s. This was actually a proposal to have a shade structure over the entire center of the park. This was never built, though. So you can get the idea of like how big that would have been. It would have covered the entire center of the park had this been built at the time. This is what was actually built with the senior center, which I think was late 60s, early 70s. And that's essentially what's there today. You have a central plaza that's squarish. It's a little bit broken up. The band shell is to the south. Those shuffleboard courts are to the north. It's essentially what we have today. You know, the cruciform geometry is gone from the east side of the site because of the placement of the senior center. This is another drawing of a similar area, just showing the Carnegie Library across the street. And again, we're thinking about the centrality, the central access, and how all that has been both reinforced and undermined over time, right? So we constantly see this thing moving back and forth as you look over the history of it. This is its current form. You know, some of those, you know, tree wells are still there, but it's, you know, it's
aged.
It's aged and it's not been maintained as well as it could have been. And then this is our current proposal, and we are proposing a new shade structure in the center of the park. You know, what another exercise we did, so we took all of those different plans and photographs and just did a kind of interpretation to track the site over time. And then looking at how, you know, just so we can start to understand how this thing's changing. So it went from something fairly random. It had more of a roundish center, then it was more squarish, then it got smaller, then it got bigger again. So this thing has constantly changed over time. And I'll come back to this because we have an idea about how to use some of this information in the detailing of part of the park. These were some early concepts. I just want to show these so you can kind of see the variety of things we've been looking at. There was a kind of dome concept we looked at for a while, given the shape of the original band shell, kind of gave that up based on cost. We just couldn't find somebody that could build the dome affordably. We had some cantilevered structures that were, when we went to Armory Park, they were very concerned. These looked too much like, it was too mid-century and looked like a gas station. So I'm like, all right, I can buy that. This was one that we did that was more of a square form that had some translucent or materials on it. I really liked it. Nobody else did. And then we had this form here, which was more of the tent form. That's why I showed that tent photograph, thinking about the military history of the site, and maybe that's something we can do where it could reach out to the west, rise up, provide more shade for the performers under this canopy. And so working with the landscape subcommittee and with Armory Park, this was the direction that we ended up moving forward in. Again, this is the overall plaza. The previous drawing that Eric had more of a round shape to the center plaza. We're moving that to more of a square shape, and that was on the recommendation of the landscape subcommittee. So we're responding directly to their comments. And then we have basically this very simple square structure that's been rotated 45 degrees. So it actually rests on the axis of the park, you know, basically the cruciform axis of the park. And the point of our triangle right here is actually the conceptual center of the park. So it does line up in that way. And that's something we want to continue to build on as well. It is a very contemporary form. So it is a square that is rotated. It's lifted to the west, and then it's folded to create a roof form. It sits on 4 columns, 2 on each side, and each of those columns sits in a planter bed with a series of tiers that can be used as risers. Performers could stand on them. Coming out of those planters would be a wire system that could have vines growing to create a backdrop for that, for this sort of band shell concept. But then the center of it is left open, so it maintains that really strong central access between the senior center and the children's museum across the street now. So it fits within the geometry of the park in that way. These are just some color drawings that are actually more square in their projection. So they look a little bit different. The previous elevations were at the 45-degree angle. These are square to the edge of the building. We're still working with color, but the idea is that this thing would have a kind of glow or color to it. You can see the planter below. Let me zoom in just a little bit on that so you can see it better. And then there's that idea of the black. I'm not sure we can afford a mountain rock. So I think when we come back, we will investigate that, but then also look at some material that has the same color and texture as the volcanic rock, but then it would be capped with a simple precast concrete cap on there. And then our structure comes out of there. The structure is a simple sort of tube steel that would have these canted beams and then cantilever that peak as it goes out to the west. And then on the from the back side, you would actually see this side from the senior center. We're looking at using a diamond-shaped metal roof shingle. We wanted to get this down in scale in terms of the roof material, but also not have something reflective. So we had thought about membrane roofing, but we thought that would be too reflective. With this shingle roofing, we're looking at something that's darker in color. And also, while it's not seen in Armory Park that much, these diamond-shaped shingles are often seen in that era of architecture, in that 20s and 30s, kind of, you know, quasi-Victorian sort of architecture. So we felt the texture and scale was appropriate, and that would also work well how it interacts with the senior center itself. And then the last thing on this sheet I'll share is just this idea about the lighting would be actually concealed into the rafters above and would light this thing from above, and would have this kind of soft glow. And we have a rendering to show you what that might look like. This is just the plan of it, just to show very simply how these planters work. The columns come out of them. There's a tiered concrete wall here. And that was really came again from the landscape subcommittee, talking about wanting to use these planters as also
Performance
spaces or risers for the stage, things like that. So we were trying to modify those, and it really helped us focus on the use of those things. They were kind of crazy shaped for a while. We were trying to make them work, but this feels much better to us in terms of being in context with what we're trying to do. Let's see. Here's some renderings just to show what that structure looks like. We have had some comments, you know, why are we opening this thing and lifting it to the west? That seems like not the right orientation, but that was always the orientation of the park, and the original band shell was facing west. And what we've done to help mitigate that is in the planting plans, you know, as those two diagonal axes come in, and as the new replacement plantings come in, they will help a great deal to shade the space from that western sun. And then with the structure leaning so far to the west, it should create a fairly extensive shaded area underneath the canopy. Because this canopy would not only be for performance, but also just day to day. Someone could sit here and have their lunch. You know, it's meant to be a very open, welcoming kind of space. This is what I was talking about with the lighting. We want the lighting to be invisible, but for that roof structure to sort of glow at night. The intent is that it would be something like, if you walk through a parking garage and how the lights come up when someone's in there and then they dim down, but they don't go off when someone leaves, we want to use something similar to that. So you have a very soft light that will come up when it's occupied, which then will help, again, with safety and security, but then will dim down, still providing light in the park and showing there's this like heart to the park is really what we're trying to reestablish. Couple more renderings a little bit further away. These were the light fixtures, a very simple linear LED light fixture that would fit up within that cavity of those rafters. And let's see, a few more renderings of the structure itself. And then this is what we were showing earlier, was its rounded plaza. But again, talking to Steve and the landscape subcommittee and Helen, they felt pretty strongly it should be more of a square plaza, based on the kind of record that we had found, and we're fine with that. And to kind of come back to that idea, I started to mention what we're thinking, something was brought up in the landscape subcommittee was trying to use something in the park to talk more directly about the history of the park without it just being a sign that says, you know, without it just being a plaque, something more than that. What we're going to investigate, and we haven't fully developed, is to take this square plaza. It's roughly the same shape and size as the original park in terms of proportion, and begin to use patterns and control joints and color to have a diagram of the geometry of the park over time. So it would be very subtle, but within this central plaza, we would use, again, very simple textures and colors and control joints and lines to establish an abstract geometry that talks about the history of the park and the evolution of the geometry of the park, which is what I found so interesting, you know, as we look through this, and why we ultimately did this drawing, was to try to understand what really happened here, how did this change, and then what does that mean for us today as we're trying to reinvigorate the park, but then also be very clear about sort of what was here and what and why and how it changed over time. I think that's,
Yeah, that covers what we, I guess the only thing that we'd like to get your feedback on it, some things that we, site furnishings and things like that. Parks and Recreation is accustomed using, concrete materials. And I think they are going to stay with that. We're proposing a 5-foot, decorative fence for the dog park, for safety reasons for both mankind and animals. And just would like to get your feedback and general thoughts of, areas that you think we need to look at and focus on in more detail so that we come back with a successful plan.
Great, well, thank you. Let's go ahead. Remember, this is a courtesy review. No motion is required, but it's helpful to provide our guidance, our thoughts on how they're progressing. And I assume that at some point we will see this for a full review.
yes.
Who would like to begin?
I'll start. I have seen this several times, even though I somehow momentarily forgot the last time I reviewed it. And I really do appreciate the evolution, and I like the where you landed in the center court with the square and square rather than kind of rounded plaza area. And I appreciate the comments that have been incorporated into the design. I will say, I know Michael is tired of hearing this, and Matt Smith has heard it a lot, but I think it needs to be said in this forum too. I'm really unhappy with the Parks Department for having chosen not to put any constraints on public surveys when they ask about desired uses. So there's no context for asking the public what they'd like to see in a park, understanding that maybe something like a dog park can't be had in every park. And I think Michael and Matt and others who've worked on this have done a great job of doing their best with a not great situation. And I'm happy to see the dog park reduced in scale. But it really, given that there's going to be a generous dog park and dog run down at Santa Rita that really is more functional, I think it's a shame to be using this park as a modest dog park. But otherwise, I'm happy with the evolution and where things have ended up. It sounds like you've looked at putting more stalls in the bathroom, and that's not going to work. And I appreciate that you've looked at that. So I don't have any other comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Who's next?
I'll go. I think it's
Okay.
great. I love it. In seeing the plan, at least the one that's up now, I feel like I was missing some sort of curved circular element just because we had seen it before perhaps, but I like the idea of perhaps incorporating into the pavement pattern, especially as part of a storytelling of the plaza over time. So I think that's great, and I hope to see that in the next iteration. Yeah, I don't have much else. The only question I had there was, and it's probably just a rendering thing, was the bathroom. It didn't look like the cut was all the way to the ground, and I just wanted to make sure that was intended to be fully accessible, right? All the same floor finish and everything to the sidewalk.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I think it's really nice. I like the idea of the planter especially being incorporated and planting being a part of that backdrop. Is the cable similar? I mean, you did a kind of a cable thing at that parking garage, right? At the TCC. Is it would you envision something similar to that where the vines grow up?
Yeah.
A tension cable? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. The TCC, we should have added some horizontal cables because it tends to get so tall that they don't They're not.
They're not
able-
grabbing on enough
Yeah,
and
they're not
they're
grabbing on.
sliding from the weight,
Yeah.
is what we're finding.
Yeah.
But we
So
also
would
had,
this,
I can
would
just tell
this
you
be
that,
needed? Would this be too tall or is this kind of the right?
No, that's what I was gonna say. This one's
Yeah.
short enough that
Yeah.
once it reaches the top, it should hold on.
Yeah.
And they'll get that high, because we're getting some stuff on the TCC that's up 2 stories, but then we'll get a big wind and it'll blow it over.
yeah, or just, it'll just sag down. And the TCC had some irrigation issues this year, which was like the year that we really would have reached all the way to the top, I think,
Yeah.
if we had the
Been
the time for it, yeah, so.
It won't, will it continue to crawl up onto the shade structure?
Yeah,
Or
yes,
will it
unless
just
it's
kind of
maintained.
stop?
Well, I mean, actually with the shade structure being a steel, I mean, the heat is gonna help deflect some of that, I would think. I mean, Jay may have some thoughts on that, or even when we talked to Helen or Steve about it, but if the vegetation can provide enough shade to cool the surface, then it will climb on it, but otherwise it'll avoid it, just like, a plant will do, so.
Yeah.
No, I think it's great. I like the idea of the a mountain rock, certainly, if you can afford it. So you can pass on or at least make a preference for that if it helps. Advocate for it.
Yeah, if we can find it, that's the other question.
Oh, is it hard to source or?
They're not mining a mountain anymore for lava rock.
Yeah.
So the only time you find it is if someone's doing a renovation project there. I mean, the last person I know, Page Rep reached out to me about trying to find people that'd like to use this rock when he was doing some explosion work over there. So that's the problematic of the Tucson Mountains is, I mean, the whole mountain range is a lava mountain. So that's our limitation. I don't think anyone is currently like actively mining in providing a source for it. So I think our alternative is to provide a ground or honed CMU block that would be a darker color and try to pick up that richness of the lava rock itself.
Yeah.
Got it.
I had a question. In the HLS comments, they mentioned when they referred to that rock, they called it repurposed. So did you have the same discussion with them that you might try to find some that's available? I mean, it's not repurposed from the site itself in any way.
No,
No.
we would have to find it somewhere, yeah.
It would have to literally be someone that's gonna be doing an addition or demolition of, for some foundation and exposing the subsurface lava rock, which in many cases, we may not even want to use that kind of rock. So it had to be applicable and fairly readily available.
Right. Okay, thanks for that clarification.
I just to clarify too, so that other people maybe who haven't followed this as closely appreciate how much input the team's taken and how responsive they've been. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
the rock idea and using the planters in that way as being more functional came out of previous reviews. And so they're doing a lot to incorporate. A lot of what is there is what's been incorporated from previous reviews. And
I had one last question. So the turf has been replaced with hardscape in your plans, correct?
Yeah, it was, the feedback came that the central circle turf, kind of, what do you call it, audience space may not have been the best use for that it would get just beat up over time, and providing a more just solid surface that we can then reflect other elements of the historical context of the park was more desirable. And we didn't want to create like a ring and get real funky with it. So we basically dropped the turf in the center, try to minimize the size of the plaza space to maintain context and maintain turf on the perimeters for, allow for the diversification of small venues to even how it's currently, or how it's been used in the past of, the place to come to protest for whatever event.
Yeah. And there was never turf in the center of the park anyway.
Correct.
Except for that, the oldest image of the just random footpaths.
Yeah, and dirt, really.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about paving patterns, would it be like the control joints and the colors of concrete, or is it pavement or like, pavers, brick pavers or concrete pavers, or a mix, or what are the thoughts?
Not
there?
sure yet. I think initially it's probably more sort of concrete textures and colors and control joints. And then I think as we develop the design, if there would be a reason to introduce some paving because we want a different texture for part of the design, we would consider that, but I think we're trying to keep it simple, but expressive.
And does it, it's pretty flat, right? It's only at one elevation?
Yep.
Yeah, the east of the pavilion is an access to the senior center. There actually is about 18-inch grade change. So we are going to be incorporating the same type of planter set of risers or stairs and ramps on either side to provide access up to and into the senior center. So actually, making it more of a front door than really right now, just a back door that's not even ADA compliant.
So those, the stairs, they're not shown on that drawing. I know they're there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they're very.
Those are new and the two ramps are new?
Yes.
Yes.
And then
Okay.
this would be a planter that sort of would,
Same material.
Matches.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. No, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, who would like to go next?
I can go. I just wanted to throw something out for you on the A Mountain Stone. I hear like a new name for it every review. I think I've always called it Rhyolite, but who knows? I know Paul Weiner did a house called Lava House years ago, and they used scoria, which is like a cast, kind of like a rammed earth, but it's like more of a concrete, and it uses like lava stone in it, and it's really dark and it's cool. So that might be an alternative if you can't source the stone as kind of like a contemporary interpretation of it. The only other thing on the planters, you said you imagine them being used kind of like as a stage riser platform thing. Okay, cool. Do you think you're gonna get any pushback from the city to kind of hostile architecture those a little bit because they look
Look too
prime.
friendly to sleep on?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my only concern. Is
So we've
yeah.
talked to that in great detail with, I mean, right now there's very few benches out there. We're going to be adding more benches and more areas for seating, and that is one of the bond elements. So we're just saying, hey, look, if we're going to have a shade component that's going to incorporate a raised platform and all that, if people decide to sleep there, it's going to be more up to Parks and Rec and the police force. And I mean, with the lighting that's underneath there, they really do want this to kind of glow and glow all the time so that it, one, provides light and a security perspective to it, but hopefully that would help this, discourage homeless from sleeping in that area.
Yeah.
Cool.
What about
Yeah,
skateboarders?
yeah. I'm envisioning like the city coming and cannibalizing this and putting like bolting grind blocks onto it. So I don't know, hope not, but
Yeah, what we could do is maybe investigate how we detail the joints in that cat block. So we create the gap that prevents the skateboarders without it being, something that's more hostile than that.
yeah, like a negative depression versus a raised thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, looks great, guys. On the cypress like procession plantings, I know there was a note about like replacing 2 that had fallen. I know the Italian cypress is like a bad word in the landscape architecture community. You're gonna like succession plant those with live oaks, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
Do you guys have any idea like where those cypress trees are in their lifespan? Are they getting pretty close to needing to come down, do you think?
Andrew, great question. So yeah, basically they are starting, I mean, with the last monsoon we had, there was actually 2 more, I think. That's why we talked about replacing the historical landscape communities, asked to replace them. But they are aging out. They do have the bright insect that's creating issues with them. And in our discussions with the historical subcommittee, the live oak being an evergreen tree, but also very, very slow growing tree, that by the time the Italian cypress age out, the oaks should have matured enough to be a good representation of that. And then that also then ties back into more of the original park of, in the 2000 where it was all ash trees. That's all it was. And there's pros and cons of ash as well. We are placing some of those, but we don't want to, just arbitrarily place them everywhere. And with the Joan Leonetti live oak that Savano's developed is kind of a cross between the Virginiana and another species that's more native. It seems like it's doing very well, very drought tolerant, and being very successful at the TCC and other parts on site.
Yeah, they're doing well. Our other concern is just with what we're seeing in reductions in rainfall and increases in ambient heat.
Yeah.
It's likely those cypress will be dead in 15 years anyway.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
don't
you
think
see
they're
them.
gonna survive the climate, yeah.
Yeah, you see them all over like 50s neighborhoods, just looking
Yep.
terrible. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I think the oaks are a great choice. That provide a lot more shade and everything in there, so that's cool. Right. That's all I had. Thanks, guys. It looks really great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. And Joel, did you have anything?
No, just thank you. Good presentation, good work.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, are there any final comments?
Terry, you had no comments.
No, I did have some questions about something, about the turf. And,
Okay.
I do have one tiny comment. You said something about when you do the next presentation, you will have details on the fence that will go around the dog park.
We have those now. Basically, it's a pretty clean, simple fence. It's I think it goes to about 4 feet high with then a break and like a top rail, maintaining kind of a wrought iron historic open fence that you would find in more or less in the neighborhood. That's complementary to one, address dog security and safety
Yeah,
while trying to maintain an openness of the site.
okay, because I had heard something different when you were talking about it being decorative or something, and I like it plain like this. I don't know what the rest of you think, but I think simple is best.
I think that was the earlier feedback too, was to make it
Simplify.
as non-obtrusive as possible. Yeah, the decorative kind of caught my ear too, because
Yeah. So, anyway, well, if there's nothing else, we look forward to seeing you again for a formal review. And thanks for going to all the meetings that you went to, because this is an important place. And I think it garnered a lot of community interest. And Jan, thank you for mentioning about the questionnaires of the neighborhood. I mean, I've had discussions with, I don't know if it was you before, certainly with Helen, maybe with Steve. We have to have a better communication because there's been repeated problems in parks in Tucson with putting inappropriate and not reviewing, not taking into consideration the historic nature. And, I thought we had things back on the same track, on the better track. And now, I think we really have to work. We have to provide suggestions to Parks and Rec for making it a more realistic process, because we have some amazing, this is an amazing historic park, so.
it creates unrealistic expectations to the public that, if enough people want something, then that's what happens. And
Yeah, well, it was a very tiny
without
survey.
context, without context, yeah.
Only a few people, literally, I think fewer than 20 people or even fewer responded to that. So
No, that's
That's-
ridiculous,
So
yeah.
I'll, if you don't mind, I'll just touch base on that real quick. So, again, early on, this is a year and a half ago, we started this dialogue about what are we going to provide for the bond and what was going to be in it. And they did reach out to us based on our initial discussions with some historical representatives. What I would say, I'll just own, we did not reach out to historic specifically and say, what questions would you ask or look to ask of saying, let's maintain natural open space or natural historical park conditions. And that to me, that would have been a fair one. Again, overall, the overall desire was for a playground, and we spent hours trying to figure out an appropriate site to, in the area to put a playground downtown, because there is no one.
No, we
So,
appreciate that. We appreciate that you are not putting that there. But all I'm saying is that the discussions are really if you provide context to the public, because sometimes they don't understand, like
true.
why
Yeah.
it's historic. So not being like nasty about it, just saying, hey, this is a really important historic park. We want to do some things here that will make service the neighborhood and the community. And how do we do it collaboratively between historical advocates, you know what I mean? And the
Yeah.
need for development and amenities. So that's all we're saying, but it was frustrating because we did have some really not so positive experiences with Parks and Rec previously. And then I thought we established a better dialogue, and I think it needs to start at the very beginning of the process, so that we can understand things better. And I mean, and then if you look at, the park along Silver Bell, I mean, that more discussion could have been helpful there, and look at the problems we're in now on that. But anyway, thank you so much. I think this is going to be a great project that shows a lot of compromise and real dedication. So anyway, we'll see you again. Do you know when you might be back?
As soon as possible. We're looking to turn in basically for final review by the end of the year. And if Park signs off on everything and we get agency review and approval and acceptance, to then come to you and formally submit for final formal approval. Is our goal in January.
Yeah, and I just want to say to Michael, and this is only half in cheek, that if we have Michael Becker projects, let's not have more than maybe one on our whole meeting. Just kidding. Just kidding.
We get that, Madam Chair.
We've learned
Michael's
from you
fault.
guys. I would say I've learned an awful lot through the historical process, working with Helen extensively and Steve and everyone. I mean, even Susanna and Corky, about just the context and appreciation that I think needs to occur on many of these downtown sites.
I know it takes time, but this is what it takes to really make sure everybody is comfortable with what we're doing. And because we know, particularly with this park and the Social Korea House, I mean, they're incredibly important resources.
No, I'm only teasing you, and really this discussion is so important, and we're just a little burned out this week. It's our second PRS of the week and full commission meeting.
I appreciate you getting this in. I really do.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
No, but it's great to move things along. So thanks again for your time and your dedication to making this a great project. So, okay. And Michael will let us know when you're coming back to see us again. So let me just get on to my next item here so we can, fingers aren't working. Okay, what I'm going to do just for ease of moving along, we're going to say that for items 5 and 6, there will be no reports because of the time constraint. Item 7 then is current issues for information discussion. What do we have for 7A, Michael, for minor reviews?
Oh, okay, Madam Chair, for minor reviews, between Tuesday and today, we did 3 minor reviews, which are just for science in the Sunshine Mile district. Ricky assisted on those reviews and she reported at the 12:10 meeting. All of them were reported for approval.
Okay. And you won't be having more?
Generated. I have tons of them, Madam Chair, but I will be going out of the country, and so at this point in time, we are going to put a stop on minor reviews till I come back towards the end of the year. So they're not at this point in time.
Okay, Michael, how long will you be gone?
2 weeks.
When do you leave?
Tomorrow.
Ay. Okay, so anyway, another question about that, but later. So, all right, so 7B appeals.
None at this point, Madam Chair.
Okay, 7C zoning violations.
Same thing, we continue to work on them. as soon as we get them, they come to you. I have one that was supposed to come to you last time. The applicant did not show up, but we're trying to push the applicant to come to you. It is 891 North Euclid for the Aggie House in West University.
Okay, item 7D is review process issues. Does anyone have anything? I did want to mention, I don't know if John Burr is still on. I think he is. John was concerned about the fact that mayor and council had not approved pending appointments to the Armory Park HPZ board. And John had concerns that this would affect their ability to review cases. Important things were coming back, such as the Armory Park thing. And it's unclear to me. Well, anyway, Helen Erickson brought this to my attention. I talked to Carla Inclon, who is our person at the city for boards and commissions, and I said to be in touch with John, try to sort this out. She can also talk to the clerk of the board, find out what's happening. I personally think that with Jody leaving, and you can maybe speak to this, Michael, that these appointments fell by the wayside. They either weren't agendized for mayor and council, there was no follow-up. I was not contacted as chair of the commission about any appointments and whether they were acceptable. So did this process just fall down because Jody left?
No, Madam Chair, the ones that come to you are special qualification.
Right.
If you have anybody for special qualification, of course, you have to be contacted. Our office has to be contacted. The fact that Jody left does not mean that the process will not follow through. So
Okay.
I do not recall any special qualification category application that has been brought to our attention.
Okay,
And
so then
then
what happened? These are regular appointments that haven't been formalized?
Probably he's just talking about appointment like a property owner, resident, those kind that don't come to you, that do not require special scrutiny. Those ones are handled directly by the city clerk. The person says their intent to be on the board, the city clerk looks at it, and then they put it before mayor and council for the appointment. So those ones, we in the Historic Preservation Office, we do not have any control over that. If it is special qualification, yes, we do, because you as chair,
Right.
you have to review it.
Right. So I think what happened, I think I suggested the correct thing to Carla. So for John's benefit, that Carla will work with the clerk of the board to get all that taken care of and get it agendized, correct, for
That
mayor
is
and council. I don't
that is-
think that mayor and council didn't vote on it, because they've done that in the past with appointments that I've asked them to make.
Yeah.
And so, but I don't think that was the case here. So hopefully, Carla, I will continue to follow up with her. But John, I don't think you have to worry. I think you just meet with whoever you have,
Uh,
you know?
May I?
Go ahead, John. Yes, real quickly, please.
Yeah, the prior policy was that people would not be removed from the board until they were replaced.
Yes,
I'm happy to serve again in January until Steve Grady and Matt Smith are appointed. But they already have their qualifications on file with the city, and I've done what I can to help facilitate them getting onto the city clerk's agenda for mayor and council. I think they've already filled those forms out, but it's going to be the same thing with the Historic Commission. 9 of you go away December 31st unless you are retained until you're replaced.
But
right, but
John, Madam Chair, let me interject here.
go ahead.
For Steve and the other person that you're talking about, if they are going to be appointed into the special category section, they need to be reviewed by the chair. That passes through the Historic Preservation Office. I do not believe that I have seen that request. When you send it to the city clerk, they will normally send it to the Historic Preservation Office. If they had sent it to our office, either myself or Maria would have seen it. And we typically work on those very, very fast. Madam Chair can testify to that. I have not seen it. I don't think that Maria has seen it.
What
So
should I do to make
what
sure
you need
that,
to do is you need to talk to the person that you are talking in the city clerk's office to make sure that they forward that to planning and development services to us, because we have, Madam Chair has to look at it, I have to look at it, Maria will look at it, the director would then send a recommendation letter back to the city clerk for them to put that person on the agenda.
Yeah, and I already put you in touch with Carla Inclon. She's familiar
yes,
with
thank
this.
you.
Yeah, so please do contact her. You have her email, correct? Because I
Yeah.
think I copied you. Please, and then call me if there's an issue and I will talk to her next week. You know,
Okay.
if there's
For the
anything.
special applications, tell her to send it to us. For the residents and property owners, they don't need to send it to us.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
so I'm not sure where it fell through, but I understand your concern, and generally it happens that people serve until they're replaced. And
Yes.
That
nobody's
used to
gonna,
be the policy.
yeah, nobody's gonna
Last
be,
year, all of us were actually removed, and it took until February before we could have a meeting. Because we won't have a quorum.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I basically talk to Carla and
I
see
will,
if
I'll
she
reach
has
out.
questions to call me, because
Okay.
we can't have that with the commission either. You know, that would,
We're all in the
things-
same boat here. I'm just
Yeah,
trying to
John,
help out.
John, have you received a letter from the city clerk notifying you that your term is over?
No, I have not.
Okay, until you
Fortunately.
receive the letter, you will continue to serve. And
Okay.
typically, when that letter comes to you, there is a clause that they will put there that they will let you know that you can continue to serve until somebody is appointed. But
Great.
until you get that letter, you are still eligible to continue to serve.
Okay.
yeah, I just wanted that is a review process issue, because if the historic zone advisory boards can't meet, it's an issue. So,
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah,
thank
it
you.
will be a big issue. But
And
Yeah.
you should wait until you receive that letter from the city clerk and continue to talk with Kyla. For Steve Grady, just let her send their credentials to us. We'll send it to Madam Chair. She will review it. She's very quick at reviewing. It's a very quick review. For Steve, we already know him. I don't think it is going to be any issue.
yeah, and Matt Smith, who's with Arc Studios, who did the Armory Park design.
Oh, okay, yeah, then that
Pretty
one too,
straightforward.
I don't think it will be an, it would, I
Yeah,
don't think it will be a problem.
So
Okay.
Michael, if you're leaving, perhaps Maria, you can call Carla over at boards and commissions and tell her we discussed this. If she's needing more background, she can call me, because we talk frequently. She's been very responsive on commission matters. So,
Yeah,
okay.
she is.
Yeah, anyone else? Review process? Okay,
Oh, then, and as from the item 2 today, we all know that it was voted that beginning next year, the PRS meetings will be virtual, they will be Zoom, unless it is predetermined that we actually need in-person review before we schedule for in-person.
correct. And you're handling the PNS, or you don't need to do one? With the boards and commissions?
No, I
You know,
don't.
the list of meetings and so on?
Which one are you asking me, Madam Chair?
It's called the public notice statement. You don't have to do one
No,
for
no,
the, okay,
the chairs of the advisory boards, they will do for their boards. And then for PRS, you will do for PRS, which I send you all the information that is required for you to put for them. Staff, it's not the staff, responsibility.
no, in the past, that's the public notice statement. So I have to do one for the full commission, saying we meet on the second Wednesday of the month
Uh-huh,
throughout the year.
yes.
And I don't necessarily have a list of dates for PRS, unless we just say that we tend to meet on the second and fourth Thursdays of the
The
month.
second and fourth Thursday of every month.
Thursday, yeah. And so I think I'll just talk to Carla about that, but so over the years, sometimes they've wanted it, sometimes they haven't wanted it for PRS. So you will just figure out what's going on. And thank you for sending me, I wanted to know, did what you send me for the list of cases that we had heard, did that include your estimate through the end of the year?
Yeah, was from January to today.
To today, and okay, I think I didn't have any other questions, and that's it's a pretty impressive thing, and I'll send it to you, plans review member. You'll see it in the annual report for the commission. It's a lot of cases we've heard, a lot of hours, a lot of meetings. But thank you, everyone, and so let's move on to item 8, which is summary of public comments or any received by the deadline.
No,
Okay, so future agenda items, we meet on January 9th,
yes, Madam Chair.
and what does it look like?
We probably going to schedule probably three reviews for that January the 9th. There's a project, there will be one courtesy review and one project that was reviewed and recommended for approval by Avery Park, and then also one project that was reviewed and recommended for approval by West University. Those are the 3 projects that I have for right now for the January the 9th agenda.
Okay, and I'll be in touch with PRS members because I'm attending a meeting that I have an event that afternoon that I'm in charge of. So I need to see if I can be on PRS and still make it to my meeting because of the time change. The meeting's in New Orleans. So I'll be in touch with everyone, but are your schedules pretty clear for January 9th?
Yeah.
Yes,
it
Madam
sh- it
Chair,
should
and I'll
be
send a
good.
copy. I'll send a copy of a draft agenda to you anyway.
Okay, thank you. And again, I apologize for today, but thanks for all your support. And thank you for all your hard work over the year. You're a great team to work with, and I appreciate you and Michael and Maria. And hope you have a great holiday. And just think, 2 weeks without plans review, more than that.
Actually,
But
a quick question, Terry. Is there a reoccurring calendar event that is updated, or how do we know when the dates are? Or
well,
So-
for plans review, go ahead, Maria.
Yeah.
So Ms. Majeski, Ms. McDonald, members of the PRS, we are working on setting up that calendar
Okay.
for the entire year in one sheet, but also we will be emailing you the Zoom meetings.
Okay.
I-
Cool. Thank you, Maria.
Yeah.
I have one on my calendar. I think Christina set it up.
Yeah.
So I don't,
Yeah.
But I have a bunch of really random things like cancellations, people set things
Yeah.
up. And so I think let's be sure, we know that the 2nd and the 4th, we need a little bit better way of communicating. In the past, we used to get a list of all usual dates if they had occurred and then we have to check if they fall on a holiday or something like that.
Yeah.
So an emailed list of the dates, which I'm sure you have to create anyway to work from, would be helpful as a start, wouldn't you say, everyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Madam
think
Chair,
so.
we-
And then following up at least for the first few months of the year with those Outlook invites, because they're really important for me, because other people look at my calendar and schedule stuff if I don't have it in there. So I'm like,
Okay.
all right. Well, thank you again. Happy holidays. Safe travels, Michael. And we'll go ahead and adjourn at 3:58. Wow, this could be the longest meeting on record. Not really for a while, but anyway, Michael, could you stay on? And Maria, I just have a quick question about some stuff.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Madam Chair, I will.
Thanks,
And-
everyone. Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Thanks.
Thank
Happy
you all for all
holidays.
your support to help us to run this office, and thanks for all your assistance and getting ready to do extra meetings, special meetings. Without that, we would not have been able to do so many projects that you have done. Because I know all of you have been so willing to change your time and do special meetings, taking 2 meetings. Like this month, you had a meeting on the 10th, and you are having a meeting today. And you're all volunteers. On behalf of PDSD, we just want to thank you for all the volunteer work that you're doing for this city. And
Thank
happy
you.
holidays
Thank
for
you,
Thank
Michael.
you.
Thanks, Michael.
Happy holidays.
So Michael, when do you anticipate, so with you leaving tomorrow, how are we gonna be doing, we've got to do these 2 LARs for the 10th and today.
Yeah, we have, Maria is still here. And we have a staff who is going to help do those early arrows that I will not be around. So Maria is going to follow up on that and ensure that they're done. So typically what Maria would do is that once the staff generates a draft of the early arrow, she is going to send it to you, like I have been doing. Once you finish with your review, you will send it back to Maria. The only thing
Okay,
is that
perfect.
Maria is also going to be out of the office. Maria, when do you leave again?
My last day here is December 19th.
Okay, so I leave tomorrow, which is the 13th. And Maria leaves on the 19th, so that is like 1 week after me.
Okay, so it would be very helpful if you can get those to me front of the week or at least one of them. And Maria, be sure to give them, you know, a sample to use so that I don't have to reinvent the wheel and redo the whole thing. Please, I beg you.
No, yeah, we'll prepare a draft and we'll email it to you.
Okay, and then tell me for sure, just say, hey, remember I'm leaving on the 19th. Get this back as soon as possible, because I'll be, yeah, I'm up at my daughter's in Phoenix, but I'll be in Tucson. It doesn't matter where I am because I just always have my computer. So, but anyway, I will let you guys go and thank you. Michael, be safe, okay? And Maria, you too when you travel.
Thank you, Derry. Yes,
Thank
we'll
you
see
so
when I
much.
come back. Thank you all.
Bye now.
Happy
Bye-bye.
holidays. Thanks, bye.
Thanks, bye.
Oop, 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 oop. Maria, did you end the recording?
No,
Oh shit. Okay.
I can do it, stop recording.
Let's see.